Howdy folks, welcome to version 2 of my CompTIA A+ Core 2 practice questions. As you can see, this is meant to help you with the 220-1202 version of the exam, but just in case you didn't know, these questions will also actually help you with the 1100 series of the exam, as well as the 1300 series version of the exam, should it be released by the time you watch this video. In the end of the day, folks, the concepts remain the same, and there is generally about a 90 to 95% overlap between the courses and the exams, assuming they're one version apart. Now folks, as I said, this video is version 2. There is in fact a version 1 video for Core 2 on my channel as well, so remember to go and check that one out too if you're going to be writing the exam. It doesn't matter in which order you watch these practice questions videos of mine, as long as they are for the correct exam, you should be good. Alrighty, now before we jump into the first question, if you haven't done it, please give this video a like. I do put a tremendous amount of effort into making these for free, so help a brother out and smack that like button. If you'd like to know when version 3 of this comes out, or if I release any of my other content, maybe subscribe so that you don't miss it. Alright, let's have a look at question number 1. One of your clients report they can't access the internet. During your troubleshooting, you notice a yellow exclamation mark on one of the components in Device Manager. This is an indication of what? Now there's a bunch of answers that I've given you guys. All of them are kind of plausible. I did that on purpose because most of these are things you could potentially experience in Device Manager. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about in terms of yellow exclamation mark, guys, there is a random picture of a Device Manager, and I purposely made sure that there's a yellow exclamation mark on one of the components, and in this case, it's on the networking side of things. You guys see it there. Now, what does it mean when you go open Device Manager on a machine and you see a yellow exclamation mark? Now guys, according to CompTIA, this can mean one of two things, but they don't statistically tell us what the percentage chances is of the one happening versus the other one. Now if you see a yellow exclamation mark, guys, it either means the device has no driver installed, or it means the device has the incorrect version of the driver installed. Now if we look at the available answers here, do we see one of those two here? Yes. If we look at answer C, the device has no driver installed. Now realistically guys, 95% of the time, if not more, that's going to be the reason why you see a yellow exclamation mark. In Device Manager, it means no drivers installed. Now 5% of the time, if not less, you might sometimes see it if there's an incorrect version of the driver installed. But the reason why we don't normally see that is because normally the machine does not know you've got the incorrect version of a driver installed. If you go and install incorrect version of a printer driver as an example, it's just going to assume it's the correct version in most cases. It's going to print, and when you print, you're going to notice something funky is going to happen. Either nothing's going to come out, it's going to come out skewed, smudged, you're going to see weird symbols that look like Egyptian symbols. And normally at that point in time, that's when you're going to go and think to yourself, okay, hang on boys, maybe I installed the wrong driver. Maybe the user installed the wrong driver. But that's not something we normally see. When you will see an exclamation mark for incorrect driver is if you transplant the hard drive of a computer into another computer. Because normally as soon as that machine starts up, it's going to see, oh, hang on a moment, I am in a different environment. My motherboard is different. My graphics card's different. My network card's different. And yet I've got the same drivers. Therefore, I'm going to assume I've got the wrong drivers installed. And that's when you're going to start seeing yellow exclamation marks for incorrect driver. But unless you go and do something drastic like moving the hard drive from one machine to another, you're not going to see an exclamation mark for incorrect driver. Instead, you'll only see it for no driver installed. Now, if we look at the other available answers there, guys, we obviously know the answer is C here. If the device was disabled, what you would see is a little white circle on the device with a little black arrow pointing downwards. Now that's the same symbol you'll see of various things on Windows. So if you've got an account or a group that's been disabled, or in this case a device that's been disabled, you'll always see a small little white circle with a little black arrow pointing downwards. It means the account, the group, the device, or whatever this is, has been disabled. If we look at answer B, normally you would not know the device is outdated. So this is probably a case of the driver's outdated, but it would normally not show you some sort of symbol to indicate that it's outdated. You will see symbols for no driver or incorrect driver in some cases, or if the device has been disabled, but there is no symbol for a device that's outdated. Instead, you might sometimes, if you're lucky, get a notification on your Windows that says, hey, you need to update your blah 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 driver, like your graphics card driver. Or you can go right click on it, click on update driver, and it will tell you that you don't have the latest version of the driver. That's the only way you'll know. And then in terms of the last one, guys, if the device experienced an error, you also won't necessarily see it here. So normally if you go look in the device manager, like I said, it's not going to show you that. It's only going to show you the stuff that I've mentioned earlier. If the device is experiencing an error, it's up to you to figure that out, and you're probably going to go and use other assorted tools like Event Viewer to see if this device indeed experienced an error or not. Alright, moving on to question 2. Which of the following tools will allow you to find out how much memory an application is actually using? Is it answer A, MS-config, Microsoft configuration? No, guys, it's not that, but in case you're wondering what it looks like, just to show you that this cannot show you how much memory application is using, here we go. You can see that's what it would look like if you were to open it up. It's got various tabs at the top. Currently, we're on the first tab here, where we can go and choose what kind of startup we want to have here on this machine. If we were to go and open the boot tab, there we go. It's going to show you all the operating systems that's currently installed on this machine. You can see I've only got one. Should you have more than one installed, you can choose which one will be the default one that it's going to boot in with. You can choose how long the machine will give you to choose between one of your operating systems. You can see the bottom there, at the bottom right, it currently says 30 seconds. You can make it less. The minimum is normally 3 seconds. So should you have more than one operating system installed, you'll have 3 seconds, or in this case 30 seconds, to choose which one you want to boot into. If we look at the services tab, I'm personally not a fan of this tab, but it does show you what services are currently running on your machine. If you'd like to have a better view of what services are running on your machine and to have more control over it, I would suggest you just go and open the actual services. This one is not going to give you joy, guys. It's not going to show you everything you want to see, and it's not going to give you as much functionality. Instead, open services itself, you'll see more and you'll be able to do more. Quite frankly, it's actually quicker as well. If we go to the startup tab, it's still currently there on Windows 10 and Windows 11, but at the moment it's blank. We can see there, it just says this stuff has been moved to Task Manager, to the Startup Items tab. But up until Windows 7, guys, if you came here on this tab, you would see what's starting up with the machine. Now, since Windows 8, they've moved this. So Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 10, and now more recently Windows 11, the tab is still there, but it's blank. If you go check on a server, you'll see it's also there, but on a server there's not even a message there. It literally just is blank. On the client side, at least we've got a little sticky note there that says, hey, please note this stuff has moved to the following location. If we open the last tab there, folks, Tools. This is one way you can go and access various administrative tools. It's not all of them. And quite frankly, I don't recommend this method because it's long. There's quicker ways to get to these tools and better ways. Alright, we're going to close that up. So what are we looking for? We want to see where can we see how much memory an application is using. So we now ruled out MS-config. It's definitely not that. It's also not answer B, system information. So if you were to go and type in msinfo32 as an example into your run command or your search bar on Windows, this is what one would see. It would show you all the information about that specific machine. What operating system it's running, what processors it's got installed, how much RAM it's got, what brand motherboard it has, what model motherboard it's got. So if you need to know this about any person's machine, that's what you'll go and type in. It doesn't actually do anything, it just shows you information. But what it does not show you is how much memory an application is using. It'll show you how much memory your machine has physically installed, yes, but it won't show you how much an application is actually using. So it's not answer B. I'm once again going to close that up, guys. If we look at answer C, Task Manager, yes. If I open it up, you'll see immediately, literally on the default tab here, I can already start seeing how much memory is being used, how much CPU is being used, memory, disk, and network respectively. And I can get a fairly good idea as to what is using all that memory. Pretty nifty, right? So right off the bat here, we can see Task Manager is the answer. So I'm going to highlight that for you guys in green, because clearly that's the answer. And just to cover the last one, answer D, check disk. Guys, that is something we go run on our hard drives to go and check for, well, damaged clusters or sectors. So if you have files, documents, or whatever on your machine that's now become corrupt, this is often because the sector or the clusters that are stored on the hard drive has gotten corrupt. Check disk will attempt to repair these damaged clusters or sectors. Should it be unable to do so, it'll try to move the data which is on that damaged clusters or sectors to a working cluster or sector. And if that is unsuccessful, then, well, yeah, you're going to lose your data. But generally, it is fairly successful. Now, you can run this tool via the graphical interface. There's a picture of it. You can see there it says error checking. That's check disk. Or what most technicians will go and do is you can run this via command prompt. So in command prompt, you specify the drive that you want to go and do this on. And you literally go and type in check disk. And you can go and add various parameters. Right, moving you guys along to question number 3. One of your clients has just issued some laptops to some of their employees. Your job is to ensure the data is secure if one of these devices is lost or stolen. Which of the following would best allow you to achieve this? Now, I don't know if any of you guys paid attention, but I just put the word best there in capital letters. I did that on purpose because that is something that they will do in the real exam. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not an actual question from the exam, but this is the kind of stunt they will pull with you. Certain words, like the word best, or the word least, or the word most, will be in capital letters sometimes in the exam. This is to draw attention to the fact that there might possibly be more than one answer that's correct here, and we want to see, well, in this case, I want to see, but in the exam, CompTIA wants to see if you know which one is more correct. So I'm doing this on purpose to kind of sort of get you guys used to this so that if you get into the real exam, that this is not going to catch you off guard. Anyway, so what was the question about? We need to ensure that data is secure if somebody's device is lost or stolen. Is it answer A, remote wipe? A lot of people will probably tell you it's remote wipe, and remote wipe has the ability to go and, well, remotely wipe information on someone's machine. It does not work if a device is stolen, guys. Sometimes if it's lost, sometimes it'll work, but if it's stolen, it does not. What is the first thing a criminal does when they steal your device? They turn it off, and they take it off any form of network. Now, if that device is not on some sort of mobile network or some sort of Wi-Fi network, how do you think it's going to receive the instruction from you that says, hey, psst, wipe yourself? It's not going to be able to do that. So remote wipe works for misplaced devices, assuming it's still on and connected to something. And it works in BYOD scenarios, where somebody brought their own device to the office for the purposes of work. So BYOD stands for bring your own device. So if somebody brought their own laptop, tablet, or phone to the office for purpose of work, and let's say this individual one day leaves this company. Now that company might feel that, you know what, this person has got something sensitive on their device. They might have too much sensitive information about the company, and the company can go and do what we call a remote wipe on that person's device. Scary, right? But the device is stolen. Remote wipe's not going to work, guys. So the answer is not A. Is it answer B, BitLocker? So far, yes, that is the answer, guys. I'm going to highlight that for you guys in green. Why is it BitLocker? Because BitLocker encrypts the whole freaking drive. The whole internal drive, the whole external drive. You can go and encrypt flash drives, external drives, whole bunch of things like that. The whole volume gets encrypted. So if this is now a laptop, remember the question said your clients have laptops that are issued to them. You can force them to use BitLocker. All the hard drives and all of these laptops will be encrypted. Now, if the device is lost or stolen, yes, you're not going to get the device back. It's still going to be lost or stolen. But at least you can sleep at night knowing the data is safe because it's encrypted. Those criminals will literally have to go and take the hard drive out, throw it in the trash, and put a new hard drive in because the hard drive is rendered useless. It's encrypted. They cannot retrieve the information from that device. So at least you know the data is safe. Anyway, so if we look at the other answers there, a winner's password, yes, that'll add some level of security, but a winner's password is not nearly, not even close to being as secure as using BitLocker. It's better than having no security, a winner's password is better than having no security, but it doesn't come close to BitLocker. Anti-malware, well guys, that is just to prevent malware, to prevent ransomware, spyware, viruses, Trojan horses and stuff, but it does not prevent somebody from getting onto your device. There could literally be zero malware on your device and somebody could still get onto your device. So it's somewhat unrelated here. So it's kind of between answer A, B, and C here. B being the best answer, C being the second best answer, and A, well, yeah, it's not a very good answer, but it is still an answer. Moving you guys along, question 4. During troubleshooting of a user's PC, you notice that it is being used by the user to do cryptocurrency mining. Ooh. You decide that this violates your company's guidelines. Which of the following should you update to reflect this? Is it answer A? Now A, the EULA, stands for End User License Agreement. Now guys, normally when you are about to install some sort of software of a manufacturer, you'll find that there's some sort of EULAs you've got to agree to. Sometimes this will be the case if you are installing some sort of game, or if you're starting a machine for the very first time after buying it. It says from the manufacturer what you are allowed to use that software of theirs for and what not, and what you're allowed to use that asset of theirs for and what not. So if this is now new software you've bought, the end user license agreement will say you are not allowed to go and pirate it, not allowed to give it for free to people, not allowed to go and resell it. You're only supposed to use it for what it's supposed to be used for, that kinds of stuff. That's the end user license agreement. But it's got nothing to do with your company policies. The end user license agreement is an agreement from the manufacturer of that software or that hardware. It's got nothing to do with your company's policies. If you and your company has your own policies that you don't want users to go and violate, that, guys, would be answer B. AUP, Acceptable Usage Policy. It's a policy that your users has to agree to before they get to use your company resources. Now, when I say company resources, guys, this could be physical or digital. Physical-wise, this could be a laptop or a desktop as an example. When they start that company laptop or desktop, before they even get to enter their Windows password, there's like a splash screen that's going to pop up. It's going to say, "Dear Sir and Madam, this machine is only allowed to be used for the following. Can only use it for work, perhaps. Not allowed to use it for personal use. You cannot go and do social media on it. Cannot go and do this, cannot go and do that, but you can do this and you can do that." So it's very commonly seen on the splash screen on people's machines as they start Windows up, just before they get to type in the Windows password. They've got to agree to that before they type in the Windows password. Other place you might see this is with the company internet, perhaps. That's a digital resource. So if you want to go and use the company internet, there might be some sort of agreement you've got to agree to that says you will only use this for the purposes of work. You will not use this to go and do illegal downloads. You will not use this to go and do social media and things like that. So if we look at the original question here, guys, the users, well, some of them, are using the machines for cryptocurrency mining. Now, since that is a company asset, and since you don't want them doing that on a company asset, what I suggest you do is, on that splash screen I spoke of, as they start up that laptop or desktop, before they get to type in the Windows password, there's going to be a splash screen. There's multiple ways you can go put it there. One way would be via group policy. End of the day, it's up to you how you get it there. There would be a splash screen, and there it's going to say they're not allowed to use these machines for things like cryptocurrency. And going forward, they will not be able to do that, because if they do, they're in violation of this policy, which means they can land themselves into hot water, and, well, they could even possibly, well, lose their job. If we look at answer C, folks, conditional access policies. Oh man, I love these policies. It's not something that all companies use, but more and more companies are using these policies these days. Why? Because half of staff, if not more, are working remotely. Now, whether these are your staff or not, whether they're working remotely or not, conditional access policies is policies you as the admin can specify, and these are basically conditions that needs to be met before users will be granted access to your company resources. Now, this is where it gets quite cool, since these people are working from home. If users are working from home, guys, they're not necessarily using an asset that was given to them by the company. They could potentially be using their own laptop, desktop, tablet, or phone. How do I know that device is safe and secure? How do I know that network of theirs is safe and secure? So this person could literally be using any device that device does not necessarily have Windows installed, it does not necessarily have any security on it, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Now that becomes a concern if these folks are going to be accessing your company resources remotely. The last thing you want is somebody to go and use their personal laptop or desktop to access your company resources if last night they were on some sort of not so savory website, they downloaded something not so legal, now they got themselves infected with some sort of funky malware, and they want to use that exact same device to access your company resources? Yeah, I think not. So if conditional access policies, you as the admin can specify conditions that needs to be met for them to be granted access. You can specify conditions like the users have to use a Windows device, or it has to be Android or iOS. It's not necessarily because the one operating system is better than the others. It depends on what benefits you or this client wants. So sometimes we'll specify that they have to use Windows because we want to maybe make use of group policies. Group policies is a Microsoft thing. Android and iOS couldn't care less about Microsoft and their group policies. Other clients might say, you know what, we want to force our users to use iOS or Android because we would like to make use of something called app protection policies. Basically, that gives you control over the applications on the devices. Other conditions you can go and specify is, I can force the users to have BitLocker encryption. I can force them to have a password. I can force them to have this password meet certain complexity requirements. I can force them to have a certain build of their operating system installed, a certain edition of their operating system installed. I can force them to have an antivirus installed. Heck, guys, I can force them to, geographically speaking, be in a certain location. If they're not in a certain location, they will not be given access to my resources. It gets really funky. If we look at the last answer there, guys, MDM, that is short for Mobile Device Management. Now, you get many platforms out there that are considered MDMs, but there's one main one that pretty much 99% of the public uses, and that is called Microsoft Intune. Intune is an example of an MDM. It is used originally to manage phones and tablets, but we can and we definitely do use this for phones, tablets, laptops, and desktops. You can manage any device anywhere remotely. Pretty cool, right? The catch is, with an MDM, these devices you manage, since I can do pretty much anything on them, kind of makes it sound like hacking, these devices in question have to be enrolled into your company's MDM environment. Once they're enrolled, you can think of this as giving you permission to manage these devices. But at the end of the day, guys, it's a management platform that allows you to manage people's devices remotely. And it's somewhat unrelated to the actual question here. The answer here remains AUP, Acceptable Usage Policy. Alright, let's move on to question 5. You need to implement secure physical access to your data center. Now guys, please note it says physical access. Which of the following would allow you to achieve this? Is it answer A, motion sensors? Now, motion sensors might be an actual physical device, but it does not, physically secure the data center. It's gonna, maybe trigger some sort of motion, an alarm might go off, you'll know about somebody being in your data center, so you're gonna know about it, but it doesn't physically stop them. It might discourage them, but it's not going to physically stop them. If you look at answer B, an alarm, same story as a motion sensor, guys. It will discourage people from going into the data center because they know there's going to be an alarm going off, but it does not physically stop them from getting into your data center. If somebody really wants to, they can rush into your data center, trigger the motion sensors, trigger the alarms, do what they need to do, but it does not physically stop them. It does not physically secure your data center. So it's not A, it's not B. C, geofence. Now this means the people have to be within a certain range. So this is quite good if you've got people at the office that wants to access certain things securely, but digitally in most cases. So if you want to force your people to be at a certain location when they access your resources, this is great for that. So if they want to access your server remotely or log into it, they've got to be in your office building, or they've got to be at locations that you've specified. That's generally what it comes down to. It's not the only thing, but that's generally what it comes down to. But it does not physically prevent people from getting access to your data center. So the only answer that's left here, folks, by process of elimination, is a badge reader. And if you think about it, a badge is something physical you've got on you. It's like a card or a badge or a phone. It's something physical that you or the user have on you. And you've got to physically present that at the door to some sort of sensor to open said door. If you don't have a badge, the door is not going to open. And if the door doesn't open, you don't have access. So yeah, that is a way to physically secure your data center. Moving you guys along to number 6 here. When working in a data center, there we go again with a data center. Which of the following would be your most important concern as an IT person? So yes, we'll have lots of concerns, but out of the ones I've listed here down below today, which one do you think is the most important? Is it disposing of toner? No guys, toner is a powder-like kind of ink that we use in laser printers. Do we have printers in a server room or a data center? Generally not. I'm not going to say no, but generally we don't. Why would you have a printer in there? And disposing of toner is going to be the least of your concerns, so it's absolutely not A. Is it ESD mats, electrostatic discharge mats? Although those are good items to have, that is something we normally use at our desks or so when we're working on laptops or desktops, when we're stripping them down, fixing them stuff. But in general, in the data center, we're not concerned about ESD mats. So it's not a bad thing to have, but it's not exactly what we're looking for in terms of a data center. Is it answer C? Humidity levels. Yes, guys. So normally in data centers, you guys can go check your manuals, we strive for a humidity level of approximately 50%. We say 50%, but realistically it's never going to be perfectly at 50%. It's probably going to be around 48, 52. As long as you can get it as close as possible to 50%, you're good. Why, you ask? Well, guys, think about it. If the humidity levels in a server room or a data center is too high, condensation will take place. What happens then? Water droplets are going to form. That is the last thing you want in a data center, because that's going to cause a short to take place. If humidity levels is too low, let's say it's very dry, static will take place. And that's obviously also going to go below components. So too high is bad, too low is bad. So we try and aim for around 50% more or less. So we know the answer is C here. Network cable length, although that is important, that is not the highest concern that we have in a server room. So if a cable is too short, something just won't work. It just won't communicate. A certain something just won't work. And this is something you'll normally know way in the beginning when you do the installation. But in general, something we're going to be concerned about all the time is going to be humidity levels. So if the cable doesn't work, you simply just make it shorter, and there you go. Problem solved. Question number 7. One of your clients have called you to come set up a brand new Wi-Fi router for them. Which of the following is the first thing you should do? Did anybody notice that I put a certain word in capital letters there again? Why am I doing that? Because I'm trying to get you guys used to that. I want you guys to pay attention to the fact that certain words might sometimes be in capital letters, and in the exam you need to please pay attention to that. It means there is more than one answer that might be right here, and in this case I'm trying to see if you know which one is more right, which one is more correct. So what is the first thing you should go and do when you're setting up a new router? Is it to change the SSID? Now, changing the SSID is completely optional, mind you. It's not necessarily the first thing you have to do. It's quite frankly completely optional. You don't even have to go and change it, but it is going to make your life easier or the user's life easier. So the SSID is how we identify this wireless network. It is the name. Now, the name is not that important, but it will make people's lives a little bit easier. It's not answer A. Is it answer B? Change the default password on this router. Yes, that is the password. One of the first things we do, guys, and this is not just routers. We do this on firewalls. We do this on access points. We do this on a lot of equipment. We change the default password. The default password will generally be something along the lines of being blank, or it'll be the word admin, or admin1234. So, and since we are all in IT here, we all know what the default passwords are. So that is a very dangerous thing. So we want to change that to prevent other people out there, perpetrators, threat actors. We want to prevent them from getting up to some sort of shenanigans. Now, answer C and D, we know that's not the answer here. Changing the DHCP settings is not something we normally do. It depends. So if it's a small office or a home office environment, you're probably going to leave the DHCP on on this router, and your 10 to 1 you're going to leave it on the default options, which means your router is going to act as your DHCP, and it's going to randomly dish out approximately roughly about, I think, 100 IP addresses. Now, you can go and turn it off, but normally we only do that in medium to large size companies where they've got an actual server that's going to act as your DHCP. If you look at answer D, changing the default IP address, that is also something you need to do on a router. That actually is indeed something you need to do, but it's not the first thing. So I would say B, changing the password, your security comes first. That is the first thing you do. Changing the IP will probably be more or less the second thing you're going to go and do. That is why we said the word first in capital letters there. It's because there's more than one answer here. Changing the IP is something we normally go and do. Because most new network devices we bring into a network, guys, the IP address is normally the same for all of them. So if you only have one device, one new device like your router network, you should be okay for that immediate moment. But later down the line, if you bring in a new network device, it will have the same IP. And what's going to happen then? You will have an IP address conflict. They will both kick each other off the network. Question 8. One of your clients report that one of the computers in their environment performs sluggishly. They mention some users have reported the issue, while others who use the same machine experienced nothing. Now guys, that alone tells us there is an issue, probably, but it's of such nature that it's not affecting everybody. So as an example, this will probably not be something like malware, because if it was malware, everybody would be experiencing the issue. So there's some sort of issue that's only affecting certain users on this machine. Which of the following should you try? Should you try to defragment the hard drive? No. So guys, fragmentation is normally why we would go and do something like defragment. Fragmentation is when your hard drive gets cluttered, messy. You can think of this as having a desk in front of you that's very well organized, and as time goes by, it gets unorganized. It doesn't mean certain files and documents and stuff is now missing, but if somebody were to ask you for something, it's going to take you a lot longer to find it because your desk is messy. Think of that as fragmentation. So defragmenting your hard drive is to go and organize your hard drive. Now from Windows 10 this happens automatically once a week, so that's one reason why you probably won't have to go and do this. But another reason why this is not the answer is because only certain users are experiencing this issue. So if the hard drive was a mess, everybody would be influenced by it, not just certain users. So it's not A. B, run the check disk command. Folks, that's going to go and check for damaged clusters and sectors, something I did mention in a previous question in this video. It's not going to make the machine sluggishly, no. Instead, certain files, certain documents, certain programs just won't open. It's going to say it's corrupt, but it's not going to make the machine sluggish. It doesn't have that effect. Check disk is just to go and check, okay, which files are now corrupt, or which videos or which whatever is corrupt now due to a damaged cluster or sector. It's going to attempt to move them, but it has no influence on making the machine less sluggish or more sluggish or things like that. So it's not B. Answer C. Add more system memory. Yes, that's the answer. Why? Because if you don't have enough RAM, the machine will be very slow, very non-responsive. And it explains the issue why only certain users are affected by this. So depending on what the user at that moment on that machine is doing, some of them will be affected by the lack of RAM, some of them will not. It all depends on what they've got open on that machine and what they're doing on that machine, whether they will be affected by the lack of RAM or not. Anyway, so if we look at answer D, we know the answer is C. Increasing the paging file size. This is sometimes known as virtual memory. When I say virtual memory, guys, I'm not talking about a virtual machine's memory. Page file is when you go and use a portion of your hard drive as if it is RAM. Now that would kind of solve the problem. You know, it's actually the second best answer here. So C is the best way. Actual RAM, system memory, is way faster than page file memory. Increasing the page file will kind of slightly reduce the problem, slightly. It's when you use a portion of the hard drive, like I said, as if it is RAM. But the hard drive is normally not nearly as fast as your RAM, so it's still going to be, well, yeah, it's not going to be that great. So RAM is the best way to go. If that was not an answer here, then the answer would have been answer D. The answer is and remains C. Question 9. A technician has just learned about an exploit which has been identified on the company web server. There is no patch yet for this exploit. Which of the following has most likely occurred? You see what I'm doing there? Certain words are in capital letters. Okay, so what do we call it when someone or something, in this case someone, discovers a brand new weakness? Guys, that is called a 0-day exploit. So you can see the answers there at the bottom just says 0 day. So the answer is in fact A. So when someone or something discovers a brand new weakness or a brand new exploit, we call that a 0-day exploit. It means there's currently no fix for it, no patch for it, no remedy for it, no definitions for it yet. This could be a brand new ransomware for all we know. I'm just using that as an example. So if there's a brand new ransomware that's released, it doesn't even matter if you go and update your antivirus and your files and all that, because it's going to cut through it like a hot knife through butter. It's not going to make a difference. All you can do is keep your finger on the pulse and check for any new definitions and any new updates and things like that. It's quite scary and it's very stressful. Now if we look at answer B, we know the answer is C here. Brute force is a type of password attack you get. You get many kinds. Brute force is when you guess the password. Now yes, I can go and guess it as a human being, but normally we'll use special software to try and crack the password. That is a brute force attack. DOS or DOS, denial of service, is a type of attack where we deny you or the user access to a service. It could be an actual service on your machine or server, something like the print spooler service, which allows you or the user to print. Or it could be me denying you access to other things. I can deny you access to your internal or public website, deny you access to your internal or public server. These are examples of denial of service. The last one, spoofing, is to forge something. I'm forging an IP address. I'm forging a MAC address. I'm forging an email address, or I'm forging a phone number. Normally, this is used in combination with social engineering and phishing. So it's rare you'll find someone using just a spoofing attack on its own. It's usually going to be combined with some sort of other attack, because this perpetrator is probably up to some sort of shenanigans. They're probably trying to trick people into thinking this is one thing when it's actually something else. Question 10. One of your technicians would like to make use of an answer file during an installation. I hope you guys know what that is. Which of the following installation types would require the use of an answer file? Now guys, an answer file is basically, how can I put this? It's a list or a file that's got pre-answers to certain questions. So if I go and do an installation of, let's say, Windows 10 or 11, if I do everything myself manually, I'm not going to need this magical thing they call an answer file. But if there's some level of automation involved, think about it. How will the installation know what the answers are to certain questions? These could be very simple, straightforward questions like, what language do you want this installation in? Do you want it in English or otherwise? What time zone do you want this machine to be in? What hard drive do you want the installation on? Do you want your hard drive partitioned? If so, how many times? How big? And. Now, those are the kinds of questions that you as a human being would normally go and answer if you're doing this all manually. But if there's some sort of automation involved, the answer file would answer the questions to, well, those things. It's going to answer those questions for you. Now, what do we call that type of installation? Is it a clean install? No. A clean install is when you go and do an installation from scratch. It's a blank hard drive, either it's a brand new hard drive, or you just wipe the hard drive to be, well, blank. You're doing it completely from scratch, but it doesn't say anything whether this is a manual installation or an automatic installation. Clean just means the hard drive is blank and you're doing it from scratch. B, an upgrade. No. An upgrade means the hard drive has an existing operating system on it already, and you or the user are upgrading it to a newer version. There's obviously some T's and C's to that. You need to stay in your lane in terms of architecture, and you need to stay in your lane in terms of additions. So if their user is running 64-bit, they've got to stay on 64-bit. If they're running an enterprise edition of their Windows, they need to stay on enterprise edition. Otherwise, it's going to be a feature and a function mismatch. But an upgrade has got nothing to do with an answer file. Is it C, repair? No. Repair is something we do. We don't do it a lot nowadays, but it's something we do if the operating system doesn't want to work. So if you or the user's machine doesn't want to start, and it looks like the operating system might have become corrupt, a file is maybe missing, or it's corrupt, something's maybe been added, then you can go and do what we call a repair. It's going to go and compare the current operating system on your machine to what it's supposed to look like. And if something is missing, it'll add it back. If something has now been added, it's going to go and remove it. If something has been changed, it's going to change it back. So, yeah, by the process of elimination, once again, you obviously know the answer is D. Unattended. Unattended means it's an automatic installation. You get attended and you get unattended. If you're not sure what that is, guys, go check module 16 on my channel. I've got the full A+ course on my channel. Go check out module 16. It specifically covers installation of operating systems and things like that. There we explain what attended installations is, what unattended installations is, and we explain high touch, low touch, light touch, zero touch. All of that gets explained there. So high touch is when you do everything yourself manually. That's an attended installation. Light touch or low touch, it's the same thing. It's when there's some level of automation involved. You're maybe just going to make sure the machines are started. You're going to make sure they're on the network. You're going to start the installation or the deployment, and you're going to go for lunch. After you come back after 5 minutes or 30 minutes, the installation or the deployment is going to be done. That is light touch or low touch. It is an example of unattended. Zero touch means it's 100% automated. This can be something you scheduled like a month ago. And this morning when you get to the office, you'll see, oh, it's been done. Great. Anyway, guys, let's move you guys along to question 11. The company of one of your clients has an open wireless network. Clients and vendors need to be able to connect to the network without logging in. Your client is concerned, though, that nearby businesses is using their wireless network without permission. Which of the following will allow your client to address this issue without asking the clients or vendors to log in? Choose one. So we can only choose one answer. So what we can go and do here, guys, and I'm going to get right to it, is the power levels. Now, if you don't know why that is the answer, certain routers and access points, not all of them, but the more expensive ones, the fancy ones, they allow you as the administrator to log into them. And they allow you to go and adjust what we call the power levels. If you still don't know what it is, I mean the power levels of the signal strength. How strong the wireless signal is. How far it will stretch and how far it will reach. So what we will do in those instances, I will go and do obviously multiple tests. I'm going to go and make adjustments. I'm going to increase it and decrease it and basically make sure that everywhere within my building, you will be able to reach the wireless signal. If you scan for it, you'll be able to find it and you can jump onto my network wirelessly. But as soon as you go outside my building, the signal should be just weak enough to the point where you cannot even detect the network, or it's just of such nature where it's just going to keep disconnecting you. Now that's a sneaky ninja way of disconnecting nearby businesses. Even if they know the password to your Wi-Fi, it's not going to help them because the signal is just going to be too weak. So unless the signal reaches their business, it's not going to make any difference. You could literally hand them the password on a sticky note. It's not going to help them because the signal does not reach their business. Pretty sneaky, don't you think? Now, not all routers and access points have got this ability, but that's not the point here. It's just to see if you guys understand what this is all about. Now, changing the SSID, unfortunately, we know that's not the answer. The answer is, of course, C here. Changing the name of the wireless network is not going to make a difference. It'll take them a day or less, and it'll figure out, oh, that's your Wi-Fi. You just changed the name, and they're going to be back on your network. Now, MAC filtering, it is very effective. Don't get me wrong. Very, very effective. But people can still go and spoof MAC addresses. So it's a very, very effective, secure mechanism of keeping people off your network. But power levels is more secure in this specific scenario. So if you wanted to keep people off your network that are inside your building, that are within range, then MAC filtering might have been a very good option here. But considering these are nearby businesses, power levels is actually going to be more effective because MAC filtering, we can still technically go and spoof a MAC address. It's not easy, but it can be done. Power levels, there's no way getting around that, guys. You've got to be within the building's range. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Content filtering is where I go and, well, filter the content you want to go and visit online. I can go and prevent you from visiting certain websites like Facebook and YouTube and stuff. That's got nothing to do with this question. It's got to do with, well, internet, but it's got nothing to do with preventing people from connecting to my network. Firewall, also a good answer, but it's not going to help in this instance. The firewall is one of the places you can go and implement a MAC filter, although you can also do this on your router. You can also go and do an IP filter there. You can go and do content filtering on the firewall. Whole boatload of stuff. But at the end of the day, if they are within range and they know the password or they happen to squeeze it out of somebody in your company, the firewall's not going to help one bit, guys. Changing the password is also pretty effective. So if certain businesses nearby have your password at the moment, yes, changing the password will momentarily kick them off. But momentarily is the word. Very quickly, they'll figure out what the new password is. Somebody's going to tell them, or they'll figure it out by somebody. Maybe they'll invite someone for coffee or tea or for a beer. And before you know it, boopity bop, they're going to have the new password again. And you're going to sit at the same issue. So power levels is the only sure way to keep nearby businesses off your wireless network. The second best answer here would probably be to go and implement a MAC filter. If it was me, I would actually go and do both of them. But unfortunately, we're going to only choose one answer here because I said so. But in real life, guys, nothing stops you from implementing multiple solutions. Nothing stops you from changing the password, implementing a MAC filter, and adding power levels. That's what I would do in real life. But in this case, we can only choose one answer. So the best answer here would be to go and change the power levels. Make sure it just can't detect your signal. Alright, let's move you guys on to question 12 here. The company of one of your clients does not allow USB drives to be available in workstations. An exception, however, needs to be made for one user. You change the policy for the one user. Which of the following commands should you run next? Now, guys, the command we're talking about here, I wouldn't say it's compulsory to run it, well, you don't have to go and run it, but it is going to make your life easier because it's going to make this policy take effect quicker, if I have to put it like that. Alright, so is it A? No. That is something we go run in command prompt to go and check your hard drive for damaged clusters and sectors, something we've mentioned in multiple questions in this video. It's got nothing to do with group policies, it's got nothing to do with USB drives. Is it B? GP update? Yes. That is a command you can go run on a machine to force a group policy to take effect immediately. What a lot of people don't realize is if I go and change a group policy, it does not necessarily take effect immediately. A lot of cases, that machine on which the policy is supposed to take effect, it will only take effect if and when that machine restarts. You'll find that when that machine starts up the next time, at the beginning of the screen, it's going to say applying new group policies and blah, 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 something along those lines. So normally it requires a restart, but a lot of people don't know they have to go and do that. So if you want something to take effect immediately, you can go and run GP update /force. So that's going to go and force the update to take place immediately. So the answer is B. Disk part is to go and, well, partition your hard drives. So that's got to do with hard drives. It's got nothing to do with group policies. It's got definitely nothing to do with USB drives. And ipconfig is a command. We go and type in command prompt to show the machine's basic network configuration. Its IP address, its update mask, its default gateway. That's pretty much it. Question 13. Which of the following would be an example of MFA, multi-factor authentication? So authentication, in case you guys don't know or don't remember, is to prove you are who you claim to be or what you claim to be. I am the owner to this account or I am the owner to this device. Multi-factor means I need to prove this in more than one way, more than one category. Each category is referred to as a factor. So you get something you know, like a password, a pin, or a phrase. That's a category or a factor. You get something you have or possess. This is something that's physically on your person, like a bank card, smart card, thumb fob, or even your phone, because the phone receives a one-time pin, but it's still on something you possess. Or it could be on some sort of app, an authenticator app possibly. But where is this app? it's still on something you possess. So something you possess is a category or a factor. Then you get something that you are, which is normally biometric in nature. This could be fingerprint scan, retina eye scan, facial recognition, voice recognition, that kind of stuff. So I've mentioned the 3 most common categories you get and the most widely used ones, but you do get other ones out there as well. Just in case you're wondering, you get, for example, someplace you are. So it could be a geographic lock. It could be a time constraint. So maybe you or the user can only log on to this platform or whatever this is in certain times of the day. It could be something that you're doing. There is many other categories. Now, if we look at the available answers down below, guys, which ones classify as multi-factor? In other words, it falls into more than one category. Is it A? Yes. A smart card is something you or the user possesses, and a PIN is something you know. It's 2 or more categories, so it's indeed multi-factor. That is the answer. B is not the answer because both of those is something you or the user would know. A password is something you know. A PIN is something you know. So it's still technically single factor. If you look at answer C, a username, that is something you know. A password is something you know. Still single factor. If you look at answer D, fingerprint scan, that is biometric. Facial recognition, that's biometric. Still single factor. The only multi-factor answer here, folks, is A. Question 14. You need to change the processor in a desktop PC of one of your clients. Before you open the PC, which of the following procedures should you perform first? Choose all that apply. Alright, so pay attention to what I said there, guys. I said choose all that apply. So there's a possibility that none of these are correct. There's a possibility that maybe all of them are correct or a random amount. So let's see. So which of the following procedures should you do first when you change the CPU in a computer? Is it A, unplug the computer from its power source? Yes, that's one of the answers. It could be the only one, but we'll see in a moment. So obviously, guys, if you're going to be working on any sort of machine, whether it be a printer, a laptop, a desktop, you name it, it's always good to unplug it from the power source, turn it off, and physically unplug it from the wall socket. Safety comes first. That's your number one concern here. So A is absolutely correct. B, remove dust from the ventilation fans. So yes, that is something you should go and do, but it's got nothing to do with the question at hand here, guys. Ventilation fans, it's got nothing to do with your CPU in this instance. We're talking about what should you do first when changing the CPU. Eventually, when you're done changing the CPU and while the machine is open, you can maybe go and clean the ventilation fans if you feel like it and if you've got some time on your hands. But it's not something you need to go and do first before changing the CPU, so it's not B. Answer C, putting on an ESD strap, electrostatic discharge strap. Yes, you are going to be working on the motherboard and you're going to be touching the CPU. These are pieces of circuitry that's very sensitive to static electricity. As you guys probably know at this point in time, if you've watched my course, the human body has got enough static electricity in it to blow circuitry like motherboard, CPU, RAM chips, and things like that. So to help aid against that, we use what we call rubber mats, we go ground ourselves, and we use an anti-static wrist strap. So C is definitely one of the correct answers. So far, A and C are both correct. Answer D, putting the power supply unit in an anti-static bag. That's got nothing to do with the question at hand here, guys. In general, we never put a power supply in an anti-static bag. They're not sensitive like the other pieces of circuitry like a motherboard, RAM chip, or your CPU. So power supplies do not normally come in an anti-static bag. They don't. And even if you're busy changing other components in a PC, the power supply, all you need to do is just unplug it. Unplug it from the wall socket, that's it. No need to put in any form of special baggie. Answer E, ensuring proper ventilation. That's very much the same as answer B, guys. Yes, inside a PC, you need to ensure that there's proper ventilation. But while changing the CPU, that's one of your last concerns. So if you're already done changing the CPU and you've got some time on your hands, yes, ensure proper ventilation, make sure there's no dust in the fans, make sure they're not obstructed. That's all assuming you've got some time to do this. But that's not the first thing you need to do when changing the CPU. So the answers here is and remain A and C. Question 15. The network of one of your clients was breached. Now that's something you never want to hear. After investigating the logs and reports, you see that it was a dictionary attack, and after 300 attempts, a single user's account was breached. Which of the following should you use? Should you go and use a screen lock? Now, a screen lock is security. That is one way to keep people off your account or somebody else's account. But a screen lock does not have a limit as to how many times you can go and do it. So if somebody, let's say, tries to draw your pattern or to try and guess your PIN or whatever it is, they can just keep going and going and going and going as many times they like until eventually they get in. So a screen lock, yes, it is security. Yes, it is better than having nothing, but it's not going to stop a dictionary attack. Antivirus, nope. Antivirus, also good to have. You should definitely have an antivirus. But in terms of a dictionary attack, it's completely useless. Even more useless than a screen lock. A dictionary attack, in case you guys don't know, is a type of password attack. It is where they run some sort of special software that literally tries words in a dictionary. So if you or the user are using a password, and your password happens to be an actual word that you can find in the actual dictionary, yeah, you see where we're going with this. Now, an antivirus, it's not going to do anything against that. Antivirus is going to help you with malware like ransomware, spyware, viruses, Trojan horses, things like that. But in terms of a dictionary attack, it's not going to do squat. It's not going to do anything. It's even more useless than a screen lock. Answer C, an account lockout. Yes. You'll find that most tablets and most phones actually have this by default nowadays. On computers, laptops and desktops, it's actually not there by default. But you can go and put it there, and I definitely recommend you do it. If you go and do this via group policy, it's honest to goodness not going to cost you a cent. It's not going to cost you anything. So what a lockout does is after the perpetrator here now that's trying to break into your account, after they get the password or the pattern or whatever wrong about after 3 times or so, it's going to lock out. It's going to lock the account, maybe permanently, but generally it'll lock it temporarily. It's going to time it out for an X amount of time. Let's say 5 minutes as an argument. If they try again a 4th time afterwards, after the timeout period, it'll just lock again and again and again. It might even subsequently get longer, the timeout period. Now that completely brings a dictionary attack to a grinding halt. It also works very effectively against the brute force attack. It actually even works even better against the brute force attack. Now folks, in case you haven't figured it out, that actually is the answer here, the account lockout. Using longer passwords, yeah, it'll help. It's like the screen lock, it'll help. But if your longer password is still an actual word that you can find in the actual dictionary, yeah. So if they said using more complicated password, complexity requirements, then yes, that could have possibly worked. Because the dictionary attack looks for actual words in the actual dictionary. But if you're using complexity requirements, which means they need to have an uppercase, lowercase, numbers and symbols, a dictionary attack would not work. Because those weird funky words and stuff you're going to be using cannot be found in a dictionary. So complexity requirements would work as well as an account lockout. Now we do not have complexity requirements as a possible answer here, but we do have an account lockout. So that is your answer, folks. Question 16. You are finalizing a new workstation for a user. The user's PC will be connected to the internet, but will not require the same private IP address each time. Which of the following protocols will you most likely utilize? This time, I'm not just putting the word in capital letters, I'm even putting it in a different color for you guys. It's not always going to be in pink in the exam, it'll probably just be in capital letters. In some rare cases in the exam, they might put it in, bold, but that's it. Different colors is not something they do in the exam, that's just me being funky here. Anyway, so your user does not need or does not require to use the same private IP address each time. So they can actually have a random IP address every day. Which protocol can they go and use for that? Is it A, DHCP? Yes. DHCP, guys, is what gives us a random IP address in a network. If it's a small office, home office environment or your home environment, then it's probably going to be the DHCP that's built into your router. It's going to be issuing you or the devices in your network with an IP address. If it's a medium to large size company, they've 10 to 1 turned off the DHCP functionality on the router because they have an actual DHCP. Either way, its purpose is to dish out a random IP address to you or any device on the network an IP address that's specified within the scope range. DNS, folks, has got nothing to do with IP addresses. It allows you or your users to go and browse the internet. It does something called name resolution. In a nutshell, it converts IPs to names and names to IPs. Absolutely not the only thing it does, but that's what it does in a nutshell. RDP is a remote connection protocol. It allows you, the user, to go and remotely connect to other devices. It's got nothing to do with IP addresses. SMTP is an email protocol. We're not talking about email here. So the only protocol here that's got even remotely to do with IP addresses is DHCP. Question 17. The company of one of your clients is retiring old workstations and they need a certificate of destruction for all their hard drives. Which of the following would be best to perform on hard drives to ensure the data is unrecoverable? Now guys, what a lot of companies do from time to time is they need to go and replace hard drives, either because they failed or just because these hard drives are old. It could be because these are old machines they plan on disposing of, or the hard drives are just near the end of life. The point is, companies can't just go and throw these hard drives in the trash. Why, you ask? Because sometimes people will be willing to go to great lengths to get the information that is still on those hard drives. The opposition, the competition, for example. There might be trade secrets on there. So whenever we have a hard drive that we're going to throw away because it's failed or whatever reason, we need to destroy it. And normally we can't go and destroy that ourselves, especially in medium to large size companies, because when we have auditors that come in, they're going to ask questions. They're going to ask, where is that drive? I can see here on the forms it says it has been destroyed, or that it's now broken or whatever, but where is it? Now you and your IT team can go and say, hey, well, we destroyed it. He's going to say, okay, cool, that sounds great, but where's the proof? So normally we'll go get a third party, he, she, or they, will come and collect the drive, they will destroy this drive, and they will generally issue you or your company with what we call a certificate. That certificate goes in a file, and when the auditors come, they will ask for that certificate, and they will see, oh, there's the serial number of the hard drive that has been destroyed. So it keeps the auditors off your back, and it ensures that the data does not land in the wrong hands. Now, if you look at the original question, guys, you can see there I said you need to select two. I'm making it a bit interesting. Which of the following is the best way to ensure that data is non-recoverable? And if you guys go and check your A+ manual, or if you go and do the official course, you'll see they normally list between 3 and 4 official ways. There's 4 possible ways they can go and ask you in the exam. 2 of them are listed down below. Only 2 of those 4. So is it answer A, low-level formatting? No, guys. Low-level formatting is where we go and manipulate the drive's physical sectors and tracks, and that basically effectively overwrites all the data, which makes it very difficult to recover. Well, they say it makes it impossible to recover, but nothing in life is ever impossible. It's still a format of a certain level. Now, low-level formatting, yeah, it goes and manipulates the drive, and it makes it very difficult to recover, and you actually shorten the hard drive's lifespan by doing that, but it is still technically possible to recover the data. Very difficult, and you might not recover all of it, but some of it, maybe some of it will be recovered, and that little bit that you're going to recover might just be something very important. So I would not suggest that as the best way to get things done. If you've got nothing else, then sure, go and use that, but generally, no. Can we go and use a standard format? No, guys, a standard format is the normal one we will go and do. It literally just goes and creates a new file system on that hard drive. It makes it appear like everything has been erased, but in reality, everything is still there. You are just creating a new layer. Everything is still there. So if you use the right software, you can go and get every last file that has ever been there. So you could have files on there that you put on there maybe years ago. Maybe you shift deleted those files, or maybe you formatted a hard drive. Every last one of them is still there. So if you ever found yourself in a situation where you shift deleted something, or you formatted a hard drive by accident, well, I don't know how you do that by accident, but still, you can still recover that data. So if you want to know how to do that, you're welcome to ask me in the comment section down below, or alternatively, just join my Discord server. The link is in the video description down below as well, and just ask the question there, and I'll be glad to help you. So the answer is not A, it's not B. Is it C, drilling? Yes, guys. That means you're going to go and take a physical drill, those normal ones that you would go and use in DIY projects and whatever around the house and whatever. You're going to take a physical drill and you physically drill holes through that drive. You cannot recover from that. And that actually is one of the methods that we described in the A+ course, and you'll find it mentioned in your manual as well. So if you guys get any question related to anything regarding destroying hard drives in the exam, one of the 4 possible answers is drilling a hole through the hard drive. I'm only going to list 2 here for you guys, but there's actually about 4 options. One of them is to go and drill a hole through the hard drive. If we look at answer D, because we have one answer already, we still need a second one. Is it incineration? Yes, guys, that is the second answer we're looking for. So that basically melts the hard drive down to molten metal. That is something they actually do. It's not something that happens often, but it does get used, and it is one of the methods the recycling companies use to dispose of these hard drives. They melt them down. So we've got 2 of the 4 methods. That actually is our answers for today. I'll get to answer E and F now in a moment, which we now know is incorrect. If you're wondering what the other 2 methods, guys, is, one of them would be to go and shred the hard drives. Almost like a paper shredder, except these shredders are industrial metal shredders. They shred these hard drives and rip them to bits and pieces. So that would be a 3rd method to go and do it. A 4th method would be to go and use degussing. Now, I'm not a fan of degussing. It's the same as low-level formatting, in my opinion. It basically corrupts all the hard drive data. That's what they say, but I've seen sometimes only about 99% effective. So that 1% or less that's still left on a hard drive, yeah, for all we know, that might be very sensitive. But degussing is, however, one of the official methods mentioned in the course. It's mentioned in the A+ manuals, and that is one of the methods they accept in the exam. So I'm still mentioning it to you guys because at the end of the day, I need you guys to pass this exam. So the 4 methods you're looking for is incineration, shredding, drilling, and degussing. Out of those 4 methods, which ones are listed? That'll be answer C, drilling. Answer D, incineration. The other 2, now you know what the other 2 are as well. Now, E, recycling, guys, that's very vague. That could honestly just be me chucking it in a bin, perhaps. Now, as we now know, that hard drive could still be in a working condition. Someone can still go and recover from that. And even if it was a hard drive that was broken in some sort of way, a company can still go and recover the data on that. So generally, we don't just go and throw hard drives away, we actually destroy them. If we look at F, erasing, that's also vague. That could honestly just be formatting once again, for all we know. So that could be me or somebody selecting all the data on the drive, just pressing Shift-Delete or formatting the hard drive. That's what it sounds like, so it's a bit vague. So the answers remains C and D. Question 18. You remove the virus from a user's device. The same user returns the same device a week later with the same virus on it. So clearly this person is doing the same thing over. So whatever they did the first time to get this virus, they probably went and did it again. So it's probably a user problem here realistically. Which of the following should you do to prevent future infections? Well, besides slapping this user, I know obviously we can't do that, but that's what we want to go and do. If we look at answer A, disable system restore. No, guys. System restore is kind of like a backup. It is, but it's not. It allows us to restore the system. Now, if you're going to go and disable that, you're actually going to make your life as a technician harder when it comes to restoring this machine. So if and when this user brings that machine back to you, one of the things we could possibly go and use to fix this machine is to go and use system restore. Now to go and disable it, yeah, we're shooting ourselves through the foot here. So we don't want to go and do that. It's not answer A. Is it answer B? Educate the end user. Yes, that's the answer. Guys, at the end of the day, in your company, you can have the best security known to man. You can have IT security that looks like it's straight from NASA. But if that user of yours is still going to go to the wrong website or click on the wrong link or open the wrong file, all of that security of yours means nothing. The weakest link in most companies when it comes to IT security is almost always the user. You can have the best security known to man, but if your users are not educated, I'm not saying they have to go and attend an A+ course, but if they're not educated on, please don't open a mail from people you don't know, or please don't click on a link if you were not expecting a link. If they are not educated in these types of things, all of your security means nothing, guys. So educate that user. Tell them Sir, that website that you keep going to, that illegal website where you keep downloading not so legal content, that's probably where you keep getting that virus. So stop downloading that same software or whatever it is you're downloading. That is what's getting you this virus. So educating the user is the answer here, guys. If we look at answer C, removing some of the user's privileges, well, at the end of the day, this user still needs to use their machine. And unlike in the old days, 10, 20 years ago, where we made users standard users on their machine, which means they didn't exactly have a lot of privileges, these days, the average user, they are administrators. And they need to be administrators on their machines to be able to do whatever it is they need to go and do. And nowhere in this question does it say this is a work PC. This could be a personal PC. Now, obviously, if it's their own machine, they need to be an admin. So I can't exactly go and remove their own privileges because then they can't use their machine for what they want to go and use it for. So C is completely out. If we look at answer D, installing the latest operating system patches. Now that is a good answer, but it's not the best answer here. If you're going to install the latest operating system patches, yes, that is going to close a couple of holes on your operating system. It's going to make it less vulnerable. But if that user is still going to go and download the wrong stuff and just go and click on the wrong links, yes, it might not be a problem today. Maybe this patch will go and close today's problem. But sooner or later, tomorrow or next week, it's going to happen again. So at the end of the day, educating the user is the best option. Question 19, folks. The system drive of one of your users is nearly full, and you need to free up some space for them. Which of the following tools should you use? If we look at answer A, guys, disk defragment. That is something you use to go and unclutter your hard drive and organize it. The more organized your hard drive is, the faster it's going to be, especially if you go look at your old school mechanical hard drives that's got movable parts. The more fragmented your hard drive is, in other words, the more messy it is, the more unorganized it is, and the longer it's going to take to find what it's looking for. So by defragmenting the hard drive, it's going to be faster, more responsive, and it's going to find what it's looking for quicker. But it does not give you more space. So it's not answer A. If we look at answer B, check disk. That is a command you can go and run via command prompt, or you can go run it via the graphical interface. It checks the hard drive for damaged clusters and sectors, and if you've got corrupt files or programs, anything like that happens to be on those clusters or sectors, it'll attempt to move them possibly to a working cluster or sector. But it does not give you more free space. It just fixes your hard drive. If we look at answer C, disk cleanup. Disk cleanup is the answer here, guys, and its purpose is to go and delete unnecessary nonsense on your machine. You'll find one of the things you've got on your Windows machine is a folder called temporary. There's a lot of temporary files in there which don't need to be there, and you'll be surprised to know how big that folder can get and how quickly this can happen. So over a matter of 1 or 2 months, there can be gigs and gigs and gigs of data in there, which you can honestly just go and delete to free up some free space. So the answer is C here, by the way. If we look at answer D, resource monitor. That is something we go and use besides task manager to go and check the 4 main counters and other things on our machine. So you can go and check the amount of RAM that's being used, your system memory, the amount of CPU that's being used, so your processor, the amount of hard drive space being used, or the amount of hard drive activity you've got, and the amount of network activity you've got. So it checks for the most part the 4 main counters, but it's got nothing to do with freeing up hard drive space. Moving you guys along to question number 20. A malicious file was executed automatically when a flash drive was plugged in. Which of the following features would prevent this type of incident? Now guys, what happens in a lot of machines, and I'm sure you guys would have seen this, if you go and plug a flash drive or let's say an external drive into your machine, very often, actually in most cases, a small little window is going to pop up on your screen suggesting programs that you can go and use as the user to open the type of files that it sees on that flash drive or that external drive. So if it sees a bunch of MP3 files on that flash drive, it's going to suggest various media players that you can go and use to open those MP3 files. The same if you've got JPEGs, the same if you've got MP4s, whatever file type you've got on there, it's going to suggest various programs to open that type of file. Pretty sweet, right? Sounds very user-friendly. The problem is, this thing is called autoplay, and I might be giving you guys the answer by saying this, and it kind of partially launches the flash drive to see what type of files are on there. Now in doing so, it's actually triggering any malicious malware that may or may not be on there. Most malwares get triggered as soon as you open the flash drive or as soon as autoplay, well, scans it. Not all, but most. So what we need to go and do here, and I'm giving you guys the answer, is to go and turn off autoplay. Unfortunately, there is a downside. Now when you go and plug an external drive in or a flash drive, you're not going to have that small little convenient window that's going to pop up giving you suggestions on what to go and use to open these file types. It's not going to pop up anymore, guys. And you'll find on most IT people's machines, if not all, that has been turned off. Because all of us, including myself, we know the dangers associated with that. We know what's going to happen, so we turn it off. And I'm hoping that after this question, you guys will also go and turn that off on your machines. Very bad to have that on. It is on by default, guys. So B is the answer. If we look at answer A, enabling the firewall. Guys, the firewall is not going to stop a malicious file. Not really. Physical firewalls in a company, yes, they might stop malicious files from getting into your network. But when we talk about your own machine, remember, we're talking about flash drives here and external drives being plugged into machine. Your own internal firewall on your machine is not really going to help with that. With that, you need an antivirus. Do we see an antivirus listed here as an answer? No, we do not. So A is out. If we look at answer C, disabling UAC, user account control. That is a function or a feature that came out on Windows Vista in 2007 or 2008. It was a complete train smash when it came out on Vista. And on Windows 7, they luckily fixed it. Lucky for us. So you'll find that whenever you're about to go and do some sort of serious system change on your machine, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to go and change that? And if you're not logged in as an administrator, normally we are, it's going to say, hey, listen, bro, you need the permission of an administrator first to go and change that setting. That's basically its purpose. So it's not really suited for this environment, but disabling it's actually going to put you worse off. I would say leave that on, but it's not going to stop this problem that we have with flash drives. If we look at answer D, disconnecting from the network. No, guys, that's going to make no difference. That malicious file is on the flash drive. And the flash drive has got nothing to do with your network. Disconnecting from the network will be good for the other machines that might be on the network. So if you happen to get malware, let's say this is ransomware, at least we'll prevent it from spreading on the network. But we're not going to prevent it from triggering. So what we need to do here to prevent this from happening in the first place is to turn off autoplay so that it doesn't trigger in the first place. Moving on to question 21, folks. One of your users is unable to log into the domain with a desktop PC, but a laptop PC is working properly on the same network. You log into the desktop PC with a local account, but you're unable to browse the secure intranet site to get troubleshooting tools. Which of the following is the most likely cause of the issue? Now please pay attention to the fact that I said intranet, not internet, not to be confused with one another. It's not the same thing, guys. Intranet is a much smaller version, which is normally inside your company. You can basically say it's a network that only resides within your company. So when I log on to a desktop PC with a local account that resides on that PC, I'm unable to browse the network that resides within the company itself, and I'm unable to access any of the troubleshooting tools. What is the most likely cause of that? Is it answer A, dual inline memory module failure? No, guys, that is your RAM, and if the RAM was an issue, this PC would not start at all, period. Now, you can see clearly in the question here, the PC is able to start. It's just unable to log into, well, certain networks, the network itself. It's not able to access various tools and whatnot, but the memory's got nothing to do with that. If we look at answer B, application crash. No, guys, we're not talking about applications here. We're talking about trying to log into the network and trying to access certain things over the network. We're not talking about applications here, so no, it's got nothing to do with application crash. It's not B. Is it answer C, time drift? That's possible. Time drift, guys, is when your machine's CMOS battery, that's that coin cell battery you find on a motherboard, when it starts getting flat. When it is flat or it starts getting flat. Normally it's just starting to get flat. Now what that will do is it's going to cause one machine or more on the network to start falling behind with time. So maybe it's 9 a.m. in the morning, but your PC is going to say it's 8:45 or 8:55. It's a couple of minutes behind. Now, if your machine is only logging into a local account, that clock that's falling behind is not really going to make any difference. Your clock is just going to be behind, and you're not really going to know accurately what time it is. That's basically all that's going to happen. But as soon as you've got a machine that's on a domain, that's when the problems start. That machine is not going to be synchronized as much as it should be. And this is especially bad in a server environment. God forbid, if your domain controller's time starts falling behind, even if it's just with 1 minute, the whole network, all your servers will start crashing. That is not something that happens often, but I've had that happen at some of my clients. It's really something you don't want to experience, and it can be quite difficult to diagnose. At first, it's going to look like you've got ransomware or like there's some sort of malware in your network. Meanwhile, it's just a battery on a motherboard of a server that's flat. Can you imagine? Anyway, guys, so as soon as you try and log on with a machine that's got a flat battery, and if you try and log on to a network, that machine needs to synchronize. Now, if its battery is flat, it's going to cause a problem. So, yeah, I'm probably giving it away. That is the answer here, guys. So the laptop, obviously, the laptop in this scenario, its battery is fine. The desktop's battery is not so fine. It's flat, or it's becoming flat. So that's why it's able to log on to a local account, because if you log on to a local account, the battery, even though it's flat, will not have any influence. But as soon as you try and log into a network account, or if you try and access resources over the network, your PC needs to have a battery that's working, and it needs to be able to synchronize. Now, if the battery is, well, kind of flat, it's going to be unable to synchronize with the domain controller's time, and it's going to fall behind, and it's not going to be able to access any resources. So, yeah. If we look at answer D, guys, file system errors. This has got nothing to do with file systems. I mean, the question is about accessing resources over a network and being unable to log in and things like that. Nowhere do we talk about file systems here, so it's definitely not D. The answer is C. Question 22. One of your users attempts to open some files, but a message appears stating that the files are encrypted. The user was able to access these files before without receiving this message, and no changes have been made with the company. Which of the following has infected the computer? Oh dear, so this is malware. What kind of malware, guys, encrypts the user's files and data? This is probably one of the most dangerous kinds of malware you'll find out there. And this is really something you don't want to experience on your own machine or that of your users or your clients. Is it phishing? No, guys. Phishing is when the perpetrator, the scammer, fishes for something sensitive, something of value. They will send your users an email, or they will phone users and they will try and trick them into giving out important sensitive information. This question, you can see, it's got nothing about users being tricked. It's got nothing about people giving out sensitive information. It talks about files being encrypted, so it's definitely not A. B, ransomware. Yes. Ransomware is probably one of the most dangerous malwares you can find out there. And if you or a user gets this on the machine, it normally encrypts everything on the machine. Some of them allow you to browse the machine still, some of them don't. But normally what they all have in common is they will all encrypt everything on the machine. They will generally have some sort of prompt on the screen that displays that says you've got an X amount of time to pay the ransom, failing which they will threaten to delete your data. They'll normally give you somewhere between 24 hours, 48 hours, or 72 hours. 48 hours is normally the standard I've seen. And if you don't go and pay the ransom, they will go and delete your data. Normally you'll find that they want you to pay this in cryptocurrency. In the past it was only Bitcoin. Nowadays I see they actually give you various payment options, which is hilarious. But yeah, that is the answer here, guys. If you look at answer C, spyware, like the name suggests, it's used to spy on you or the user. You get many kinds. You get the kind that will go and record your keystrokes. You get the kind that will go and record real time what the person is doing, or stream real time what the person is doing on the machine. You'll get this potentially from, let's say, an employer that wants to see if his or her employees are actually doing their work. So that's technically a form of spyware. If you look at answer D, that's technically the same as C. D is just a subcategory of C. So spyware consists of many things. It's an umbrella term. It consists of things like keyloggers. A keylogger is an example of spyware. And even in keyloggers, you get subcategories, believe it or not. You get the kind that will record everything the user types, and then you get the kind that will go and record only when the user is about to go and type in something sensitive, something of value. Anyway, the answer is B, folks. Question 23. One of your junior technicians is busy optimizing a client's computer to try and get it to boot faster. So they're tweaking it a little bit. The technician goes into msconfig to have a look at what's starting up with the computer, but sees a message that it has been moved. Where can this junior techie see the items that starts up with Windows? Now guys, for those of you that don't know, if you go into msconfig, up until Windows 7, you'll find there's a tab there that says Startup, and if you click on that tab, it'll show you what starts up with that machine. And if you see something starting up that's not supposed to start up with the Windows operating system, you could go and disable it, and that would actually make the PC boot up faster. Now, after Windows 7, so in other words, Windows 8, 8.1, Windows 10, Windows 11, if you go into msconfig, which you can still do, by the way, you'll find that the startup tab is still there. Yes, it's still there. But if you click on it, there's nothing there. There's just a little sticky note there that says this has been moved. If you do this on a server, you'll find that there's no note there. I don't know why. But on the client operating systems, at least it tells you it has been moved. They tell you where it's been moved to. They actually give you a little link to click on. And if you click on that link, it opens that tool. I almost gave the answer now. And it opens it on the right tab on that tool. Is it answer A, MSTSC? No, guys. That is remote desktop. Remote desktop is used to connect from one machine to another remotely to go and control it and fix it and troubleshoot it and what. If we look at answer B, perfmon, that is performance monitor. It's what you can go and type into run or whatever to go and open performance monitor, which allows you to go and add counters to monitor various things on the machine. It doesn't allow you to change anything. It just monitors just about anything you can imagine on the machine. It's a monitoring tool. It doesn't change anything with the startup though. If we look at answer C, MSInfo32, that, guys, shows you system information about the machine on which you're typing this in. It'll show you pretty much anything you want to know about the machine. What motherboard it has, what brand, what model, what make, how much RAM it's got, you name it, it'll show you the information. But it doesn't do anything once again. It shows you information. So obviously by the process of elimination, we now know the answer is D. D is going to open Task Manager. Many ways you can go and open that. You can go and press Control Shift and Escape on the keyboard. Watch out, that is one they'll ask you about in the exam. And you can go right click on the taskbar and you can just go and click on Task Manager there. Now since we are on the topic, guys, one of the questions they'll ask you in the exam is, what can a user do to open Task Manager? Now, most of us know this as Control-Alt-Delete. We even make jokes about it. Even people that's not in IT knows you can go and press Control-Alt and Delete. And yes, most of us already know you can go right-click on a taskbar and you can just go click on Task Manager there. But not a lot of people know that you can go and press Control-Shift and Escape. Hold all three keys in at the same time and it will also open Task Manager. That's the one they'll ask you about in the exam. They'll say, which of the following will allow you to open Task Manager? They'll give you 4 possible answers, and they're not going to be Control and Delete, and they will not be right-click on a taskbar. Instead, you'll find Control, Shift, and Escape will be listed as one of the possible answers, and they catch people of this, because now you're looking for Control and Delete, or you're looking for the answer that says right-click on taskbar, and you don't see it. So now people don't know what the answer is. It's Control, Shift, and Escape. Test it. Check. It works. Moving you guys along. Question 24. One of your clients receives a phone call from a person who claims they are from the client's bank. Which of the following describes what is taking place? So they're receiving a phone call, one of your clients or users, and the phone call they're receiving is a person that claims to be from their bank, but they're not. What is that? Is it spear phishing? No, guys. Phishing is when I'm fishing for information, but I'm targeting a specific individual. So if I'm just phishing, I'm just randomly sending out mails or randomly phone calling people, hoping to get some sort of sensitive information from one of these people. Whoever gives me it first, I'm going to go and, use it against them. I'm going to go and log into their banking details or whatever. So, but if I'm saying spear phishing, that is when I'm normally targeting a specific person at a company. Specifically, the IT guy. Or specifically someone I just don't like. That is spear phishing. Spoofing is forging something. Now, if we look at the question here, they don't say the person is asking for something sensitive. At first, this call might seem like a phone call where they're trying to get information, but it's probably going to be that, if we carry on with this question. But if we look at what we see here at the moment, it only says the client receives a phone call from the person who claims to be from the client's bank. It does not say that this supposed bank is asking for sensitive information. They're probably going to do that right after this, but it does not say that yet. So it's not phishing yet. Probably will be, but not yet. At this point in time, all the person on the phone is doing is they're pretending to be from the bank. What is that? It's called spoofing, guys. Spoofing is forging something. Forging a phone number. Forging an IP address. Forging a MAC address. Forging an email address. So when I send you an email and it looks like it's coming from the bank because I forged their domain, that is spoofing, guys. So at this point in time, this person is claiming to be from the bank, so they're trying to make it look like they're coming from the bank. That is spoofing. But spoofing is usually combined with something else. Usually something like a phishing attack, where they're going to try and pretend to be from the bank in the hopes of tricking the user into giving up sensitive information. So I can guarantee right after this would have probably turned into phishing or phishing. Phishing, if you look at answer C, is phishing. It's just specifically done over a phone call, which probably is what this would have been. D, evil twin. That is when somebody has got an access point or a router, probably a router nearby, and they're broadcasting the same SSID. They went and changed the SSID, so that's the network identifier. They went and changed the name of the little Wi-Fi to the same as yours or that of your clients, in the hopes of tricking people into connecting onto their network. And as soon as people connect to their network by accident, because the names look the same, they will compromise those people's machines and probably get sensitive information off of their machines, and then they will be able to connect to your real network because they've got the passwords and the usernames and whatever they need. Anyway, guys, moving you guys along to question number 25. One of your clients downloads and installs a game. The game ends up stealing information from the computer system. What is this known as? Is it spam? No. Spam is unwanted something. Unwanted text messages, unwanted phone calls, unwanted emails. So that's when I'm bombarding you with all kinds of unwanted emails, or I'm bombarding you with all kinds of unwanted WhatsApp messages, SMSs. That is generally seen as spam. If we look at answer B, phishing. Phishing is when I'm trying to get sensitive information out of you or the user. So if I'm the perpetrator here, the threat actor, as CompTIA calls it, I'm going to try and trick you or the user into giving me sensitive information. That is phishing. Nowhere here do we talk about tricking people into giving up sensitive information. We're talking about a game that's pretending to be a game, but in reality it's stealing your information. What is that? Is it C or D perhaps? C is a Trojan. Yes, Trojan is short for Trojan horse. A Trojan horse, for those of you who don't know, is a form of malware that pretends to be one thing when in reality it's something else or doing something else. It pretends to be a game, but in reality it's stealing information. Or it pretends to be a cool program or a cool toolbar or this or that. Whatever it pretends to be, funny enough, 9 out of 10 times will actually work, because they don't want you to uninstall it. If it pretends to be a game, and this game doesn't actually work, what are you going to do? You're probably going to go and uninstall it, which means it's not really going to work in stealing your information. So you'll find that whatever it pretends to be will ironically 9 out of 10 times actually work. The whole idea is for it to work because they want you to keep it on your machine. The longer it's on your machine, the more information they can steal, or the more they can do whatever this was supposed to be. So a Trojan horse pretends to be one thing when in reality it's doing something else. So the answer is C. Answer D, spyware. I think we've explained that one enough in the previous question, so it's used to, well, spy on the user in some sort of way. Now, yes, the question says stealing information, and spyware, well, it sounds right up spyware's alley, but it also states that the user downloaded and installed a game. Spyware would normally not pretend to be something like a game. Spyware runs in the background and the user is normally not aware of it. It's hidden. They don't want the user to know about it. A Trojan horse, well, it'll outright be in your face. It's going to pretend to be something like a game. Anyway, moving on to number 26. A client calls a support center, probably you, which you work at, and begins to yell at one of your fellow technician colleagues about a feature of a product that does not work to their satisfaction. This feature is not supported by your support center and needs to be inspected by a field technician. So basically, it's a classic case of it's actually technically not your job. The client continues to demand service. Which of the following is the best to do? Now guys, this is a very real world scenario. You're going to get users or clients from time to time that's going to call you, your department, or your team about stuff that sometimes got nothing to do with you. Now this person is calling your tech department because they know this is a technician problem, but it's not your department's problem. It's a problem that a field technician needs to inspect. It's got nothing to do with your specific department in this instance. But this client continues to demand service. So, yeah, what is the best course of action here, guys? Is it A, tell the customer they should be able to fix the problem themselves? Although that's what we are thinking, that might be what we are feeling, it's unprofessional. We cannot do that, guys. It's not A. Is it B? Inform the customer that the problem is not within the scope of this department. I suppose some technicians might actually do that, but it's technically not the right answer here, guys. Generally, we're still going to try and help the customer. So even though it's not your problem, technically, or your department's problem, technically, the correct way would probably be to say something along the lines, okay, sir, ma'am, this is actually not my department, but let me see if I cannot help you. You know what? Let me see if I can help you. I'm going to get a hold of a field technician for you, or this or that. Now, that's not the exact answer here. We don't have that answer available here, but that would probably be the correct way to do it. You'll say, sir or ma'am, I apologize. This is actually not our department's responsibility, but that is a field technician. You know what? But I'm gonna hook you up with a field technician. Instead of just leaving you hanging, because remember, they don't know what's going on here, you're going to try and hook them up with that field technician. Anyway, if we look at answer C here, apologize to the client and escalate the matter to a manager. So far, that's pretty good. So even though it's not your problem, it's not your fault, we are still going to be polite about it, and we're going to say, sir, ma'am, I apologize for the inconvenience. Sorry for the inconvenience. Let me see if I can escalate this to my manager. It makes them feel like they're heard. It makes them feel important. And chances are your manager is going to be able to escalate this to that field technician or direct it to the correct people. So the answer is actually C here, in case you guys are wondering. If we look at answer D, ask the customer to explain the issue and then try to fix it independently. Now, if you're going to ask them to explain the issue, it sounds like you want to help them, so you might be misleading them here. And maybe you cannot even fix it because this is not in your wheelhouse. So remember, this problem needs to be fixed by a technician in the field. It's a field technician problem. So the chances are fairly good that you might not be able to solve this remotely, and you're going to get this customer's hopes up, and you're going to look like a fool for not being able to fix it because you need to be present physically in person. So do not try and fix things yourself if it's not your responsibility or that of your company. Question 27. A user's newly issued PC has very large desktop icons. The report that the new PC was working fine until a recent software patch was deployed. Which of the following would best resolve the issue? Alright, so some sort of software patch messed with this PC's icons. If we look at answer A, restoring the PC to factory settings, yeah, that'll work. That's basically like a format, although Windows 10 and Windows 11's got this thing called reset. And if you go click on that, it basically is like a format. You can either go and do a reset, which basically puts the machine exactly the way it was just after you installed Windows. Basically a format, if you will. Or you can go and say reset, and then it asks you if you would like to keep something. And if you want, you can say I would like to keep my settings, my programs, my documents, things like that. The point is, factory settings is going to be very drastic. It'll get the job done, but very extreme. So, not necessarily the best. You'll see it says, would be best. So, the word best is in capital letters. That means there's more than one answer possibly here that's correct. A is an answer I put there which is not so correct. It'll work, but it's not the best answer. If we look at answer B, roll back video card drivers. Yes. So the fact that the icons has changed is 10 to 1 a video card driver that's taken place here now. And by rolling back the video card drivers, you'll be rolling back just that driver for just that hardware component and that alone. It's not going to affect anything else on the machine. So all your programs and data and settings and also your other drivers are all going to remain intact. That is the answer here, guys. If we look at answer C, run an antivirus scan. This was a software patch, a patch of sorts that took place on the machine. So it's very unlikely that this was some sort of virus that took place. Could be, but very unlikely. If you look at answer D, reinstalling the Windows operating system. Now that's even more drastic than answer A. D will get the job done, it'll work, but that's the most extreme out of the whole lot. So D, yes, it'll work, but the most extreme. A will work. A little less extreme than D, but it'll work. B will also work. So B is the least extreme out of the lot here. So the answer is B, folks. Question 28. During your stay at a hotel, when trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, you notice multiple SSIDs with names that look very similar. Which of the following social engineering attacks is being used here? So social engineering, guys, is generally when we try and trick the user into doing something. This could be to try and trick them into connecting to the wrong network, to try and trick them to hold a door open, to try and trick them to give us information. Generally, that's what social engineering is all about. So are we doing impersonation? Kind of. Impersonation is generally more in IT when we try and pretend to be a person that we are not. So it's not really impersonation. We are talking about SSIDs that look similar. That is evil twin. So that's when the perpetrator, the threat actor, gets themselves their own access point or their own router. They go and change the SSID of that access point or router to be the same as yours or that of another network nearby. And this is normally in the hopes of tricking people to connect to the wrong one. And as soon as they connect to the wrong one, they will connect to that person's machine and get all kinds of information that's quite valuable. Cookies and stuff. So yeah, we really don't want that. So the answer is evil twin. If we look at whaling, guys, whaling is when we go after a specific high individual at a company. A CEO or a chairman, it's a high-ranked individual normally at a company. If we look at phishing, we know what that is. We've discussed that many times in this video before. That is when we're phishing for something sensitive, something of value. We're trying to trick the user into giving us information, but phishing on its own is normally going to be via email. Phishing does have subcategories, so if it's got a V instead of a P in the front, vishing, that's normally if it's done via voice. So I'm going to call you and try and trick you over the phone to give me information. If there's, for example, a Q in the front, quishing, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That is if I'm trying to trick you into scanning the wrong QR code. It's going to take you to potentially a phishing website. The point is there's a QR code involved. Anyway, the answer is B. Question 29. Which of the following should be used to secure a device from known exploits? Is it remote wipe? No, guys. Remote wipe is generally used if you've misplaced a device and you're concerned somebody's going to get a hold of sensitive information. So, assuming the device is still turned on, it hasn't died yet, so the battery is still alive, you can go and send this device remote instructions to go and wipe itself so that the data does not land in the wrong hands if there happens to be something sensitive on it. Remote wipe can also be used on a device, which belonged to a user that has now left your organization. So if you or your company feels this person has potentially got sensitive information on that device that they own, that's got, company information on it, maybe they use this device for the purposes of work, we call this a BYOD. That's when you use your own device for the purposes of work. Now, if we feel you've got too much sensitive information, we can go and remote wipe your device. Remote wipe is supposedly, according to CompTIA, also used for stolen devices. Now, I can tell you guys that does not work in real life. That's what CompTIA says, that's what the course says, but from experience, I can tell you realistically in real life, guys, that does not work. For a device to be remote wiped, if it's stolen, it needs to first of all be turned on. It needs to be on some sort of network, a mobile network, a Wi-Fi network. If it's not on, and if it's not on a network, how do you think it's going to receive that instruction that says, wipe yourself? the first thing criminals do when they steal your device, your phone or whatever, is they turn it off. And they take the SIM out, they disconnect it from networks, so it's not going to receive the instruction that says wipe yourself. So it doesn't actually work with stolen devices. Anyway, remote wipe does not work with known exploits, guys. If we look at encryption, that gives us security, it gives us confidentiality, potentially integrity, but it does not protect us in any way against known exploits. If we look at C, operating system updates, yes, that is one way, not the only way, to protect yourself or the user against known exploits. So obviously every day there's constantly going to be new threats, new vulnerabilities, new weaknesses, and the only way we can fight against these guys is to make sure we always have the latest updates. The latest updates for our operating systems, the latest updates for any form of security software, whether it be your antivirus, your firewall, you name it, we need to have the latest updates. Now, just because you've got a completely up-to-date operating system antivirus does not mean you're not going to have any issues, but it does drastically reduce the chances of an issue. Anyway, the answer is C, by the way. If we look at answer D, only install vendor-approved software. Now, that's going to reduce the chances of exploits, but it's not going to completely get rid of it. So, the best answer here would be C. The second best answer would probably be D. So if C was not available, I would have chosen D. Question 30. You receive a call from a client who is having issues with an application. You want to simultaneously view the user's screen with them to help them troubleshoot the application. So we want to be able to see their screen live. We want to be able to see what they're doing while they also see their screen live and what they're doing. So the user will be sitting in front of their computer. They can still use their mouse and keyboard. They can see what's happening. They can interact with the machine. But at the same time, we or you want to be able to see the user screen like a video stream. You want to be able to see live what they're doing. So if they move the mouse cursor, you want to be able to see that. If they click on something, you want to be able to see that. Now, which of the following will allow you to achieve this, guys? Is it RDP, which is Remote Desktop Protocol? Now, although this is a way for you to go and remote connect to a machine and even take control of that machine and see live what's going on that machine, what RDP cannot do is it cannot allow you and the user to see the same screen at the same time. So it ticks most of the boxes, but not all of the boxes. My question specifically says you want to simultaneously view. RDP cannot do that, guys. So if I RDP to your machine, if you're sitting in front of your machine, it's actually going to kick you out to your logon screen. It might even potentially display a message that says you've logged on from somewhere else. So you will not be able to see what I'm doing. And if you log back in, it's going to kick me out. So we cannot both see the same screen at the same time. So if I want you to show me what the problem is, it's not going to work, because as soon as you log back in to show me the problem, it's going to kick me back out. So only one of us can see the machine at a time. RDP is not going to work. If we look at VPN, that is also a form of remote connectivity, but that's to basically digitally teleport yourself somewhere where you're not. It does not allow you to view somebody's screen. It's not used for that purpose. It basically is used to pretend to be somewhere where you're not. You know, if I have to put this in simple terms. So if you are normally the kind of person that would normally sit at the office and use your computer there, and now one day you decide to work from home. If you try to access any resources that would normally be on your office network, it's not going to work. If you try and access your fellow colleagues' PCs on the network, it's not going to work because it's a different network. If you try and access the office servers, it's not going to work. It's a different network. But if you go and VPN to your office, it's as if you are at the office, digitally speaking or logically speaking. Anything you could normally do and see and access, digitally wise, you'll be able to do that as if you are at the office. But you're not going to be able to view someone's screen, no. It's simply as if you are somewhere else, digitally speaking. So B is not it. If we look at SSH, guys, that is also a form of remote connectivity. All four of these are remote connectivity. So I purposely did that to see if you guys understand the difference between these different types of remote connectivities. And I could have probably added more if I really wanted to. Now, SSH, guys, is something we do in a console view, normally. You know, SSH and Telnet actually look very much the same, if you guys know what Telnet is. So you'll normally go and use something like PuTTY. It's in a console view, and we will go and normally use this to connect to things like a router, as an example. So you need to go and use commands to go and access this device, type in username and a password, and you need to be familiar with the commands of the device that you are connecting to. So if it's, for example, a Cisco device, you need to be familiar with Cisco commands. But this kind of remote connectivity, guys, is not really used for PCs all the time, and it's not really used in a graphical interface. So I will not be able to see what you are doing live. It's not going to work. So by process of elimination, the only answer that's left here is, well, D, and yes, that is the answer, guys. VNC is a third-party program you can go and download and install. So on the machine that you are connecting to, you'll have to install this on. On the machine you are connecting from, you'll have to install this on. And on the machine that you are connecting to, when you open it, it's going to give you a code of sorts normally. It's basically a unique ID for that machine. And the person that, well, requires the assistance, they will have to give you their machine's unique ID. When they open it, it'll also give a temporary password. And that temporary password, once you go and type that in with their ID, it's going to allow you to go and see what they're doing on the machine real time, live. You can even take control of the machine, so you can both move the mouse cursor at the same time. You can both interact with the keyboard at the same time. The only difference is they are physically sitting in front of the machine and you are doing it remotely. But you both have full control over the exact same machine at the exact same time. Now, there are other third-party tools just as famous, just as popular as VNC. So for a very long time, VNC was the only third-party tool that was covered in the CompTIA A+ courses. But only recently, I think in this 1200 series, have I started seeing CompTIA mention some of the other third parties. These would be names like TeamViewer, a very popular brand, but it works in the exact same way. These are also names like AnyDesk, and I can give you many more. So TeamViewer, AnyDesk, VNC, all three of these are third-party programs, totally different ones, but they work in the same way. Anyway, folks, moving you guys along to question 51. The system drive of one of your users is nearly full. You need to free up some space. Now, I did kind of have a question like this earlier in this video, so let's see if you guys paid attention. Which of the following tools can you use to achieve this? So can any of you guys remember what tool I mentioned earlier will allow you to free up some space on your machine? Is it answer A, disk cleanup? Yes, that was the tool I mentioned earlier. Disk cleanup will go and free up a lot of space on your machine. Some machines more than others, depending on how much you've got in your temporary folder and things like that. And then we've got answer B, disk defragment. That was also actually listed as one of the possible answers earlier. Disk defragment will basically just go and reorganize your computer's hard drive. So if your hard drive gets fragmented, which means it gets unorganized or messy, disk defragment will go and reorganize it so that it can find things quicker. It'll make your PC faster, but it's not going to give you more space. Resource monitor was also mentioned earlier. Resource monitor allows you to see the 4 main counters on the machine. So you can go and see CPU usage, hard drive usage, network usage, RAM usage, things like that. But in no way or no sense does it free up space. If you look at disk management, that is something we use to see various storage devices on the machine, like the hard drives. You can see how big your volumes is, how much free space you've got on the volumes, how many times they've been subdivided, in other words, partitioned, how big these partitions are. You can go make partitions, delete partitions, and do all kinds of things like that there, but it does not free up space. Question 32. Which of the following can you use in your environment to identify potential issues with a proposed change before implementation? So before you go and actually implement something, whether it be some sort of new deployment, some sort of migration, some sort of whatever, what can we go and do to check if there's any potential issues we need to be aware of that we might need to go and address before we go and implement whatever this is? Is it the request form? Now, that is very important when you're about to go and do a change. You should go and fill in the request form. So a lot of medium to large size companies, you've got a document form of sorts you've got to go and fill in. This could be physical or digital. And it basically states who you are, if you're from a different company, what your name is, what you're about to change, when you're about to change it, why you're changing it. So that if something goes wrong, we can see who this is and why it was done. And you're also basically requesting permission. So very important, but it's not going to allow us to identify any potential issues before the change takes place. Is it answer B, a rollback plan? No. Also very important if you're about to go and do a change, but the rollback plan is more like, what are we going to do if things go sideways? So after you have already done the change, that is when you're going to go and use the rollback plan if things don't go according to plan. It's your backup plan in case there's an incident. So if poop hits the fan, your rollback plan is what you're going to go and do about that. So it's not B. Answer C, end user acceptance. Now guys, somewhat unrelated here. So end user acceptance is where they have to go and accept and agree to things. In this scenario, no. So it's not going to help you identify any potential issues. So by process of elimination, the answer is obviously D here. Sandbox testing. It's an isolated environment. Often you'll find this might be a hypervised environment, which means it's on virtual machines or something. It allows you, your colleagues or the technicians to go and test something in a safe environment to see if it gives you the desired results. If it gives you the results you were expecting. If it goes according to plan, everything seems to be working a-okay, then you can go and deploy this or change this in your real production environment. But if it does not go according to plan and it does not give you the results you were expecting, at least you will identify a couple of potential problems now, and you can go and try and see if you can come up with a couple of solutions for that first before you deploy this. So the answer is D. Question 33. One of your clients reports an issue on their laptop with their internet connection speed. Which of the following tools can you use to investigate connections on a laptop? Alright guys, so when I say tools, these are actually referred to as tools, mind you. These are all commands you're going to be running in a place like command prompt as an example. And depending on which one of these you use, it will do something or, well, show you something. So which one of these tools will allow you to identify the issue on this laptop when it comes to, well, connections, or investigate what connections are going on a laptop? Is it answer A, net use? No guys, net use is a command we normally use to go and map drives on a computer. So if you have a folder or a hard drive on another machine that you want to go and map as a hard drive on your computer, it's going to look like a hard drive on your computer. Net use is a command we'll go and use a command prompt to map this via, well, the command line interface. This can be done via the graphical interface as well. You can go and use this via the GUI. But if you'd like to go and do it via command prompt, that's the command you're going to go and use. If you're curious what this looks like, let me open command prompt here for you guys. There's a bit of a screenshot where I am busy typing it in. So you're going to go and type in net use. You can see I type in net use. You're going to specify the drive letter that you want to allocate to this. Obviously, you can only use letters that has not been used yet on your machine. And then you're going to follow through with the location as to where this actually is. What the machine name is, what the hard drive or the folder is. You're going to follow through with the location. So just to add on to that, let me go and add a command here at the bottom in pink for you guys. So it's going to be net use, the drive letter that you want to go and allocate, the server name, assuming it's a server, or the PC's name, and then the folder's name or whatever they share this as. But as you guys can see, this command is not used to identify connections on a machine. It's used to map drives. So it's not A. If we look at answer B, net user, what does that do? So once again, I'm going to bring up command prompt for you guys. You can see there I typed in net user. It shows me the local accounts on this machine, the local user accounts. Now you can go and use this to list the accounts. You can go and use this to change the passwords to accounts, things like that. But it does not show you connections on the machine. It's got to do with user accounts. So it's not B. If we go back to our list of answers, we now know it's not A or B. Answer C, net stat. What does that do? So I'm going to open this up in command prompt again. There we go. You can see I typed the net stat there. Well, I actually typed the net user because of the previous one. And then I ran netstat after that. But anyway, if you type in netstat, this is what you're going to see here at the bottom. You can see it shows me all the connections on the machine. So that is actually the command we need. So that is the answer. So if you go and type in netstat, yes, mine says net user there, but that's because I ran that command for the previous answer. But if you're going to run netstat, that's effectively what you're going to go and see. It's going to show you all the connections on this machine, guys. And if something is, well, there that's not supposed to be there, this is going to hopefully help you identify that. So that is the answer. And then the last one here, we know the answer, C. NS lookup. What does that do? So that's a command we use that's got to do with our DNS. It's got nothing to do with active connections. It's got to do with your DNS. It'll show you what your DNS server's address is. It'll allow you to query your DNS. So if you go and query your DNS, you can go and have it retrieve information for you about a domain name, show you its IP address, all kinds of things like that that's got to do with DNS records. But it's got nothing to do with showing you active connections. So the answer is and remains C. Question 54. You have discovered that the input of one of your users has been captured. Which of the following malware attacks is being used here, guys? Is it spear phishing? Spear phishing is where I'm targeting a specific person at a company. So I want to do phishing. I'm trying to get sensitive information out of a person, but not just random people, a specific individual. So spear phishing is when I target a specific person at your company, and I'm trying to trick them. So it's a form of social engineering, but I'm specifically targeting a specific person at your company, maybe an IT person or a CEO or just someone in general I don't like. But it does not capture the input of a user. So it's not A. Answer B, keylogger. Yes. Keyloggers is a form of malware, a form of spyware that captures the user's keystrokes. You get different kinds of keyloggers, but they all have one thing in common, and that is to capture users' input. So the answer is B. C, ransomware is going to encrypt everything on someone's machine, their server, or their network, and it's going to hold it hostage until you pay the ransom in cryptocurrency. D, crypto miners is when one or more machines is being used to solve complicated math algorithms, and this is normally in exchange for, well, cryptocurrency, so Bitcoin and all that kinds of stuff. So your machine might be turned into a machine that's going to be used as a crypto miner, against your will, or you can go and do this on purpose. Either way, this is used to solve complex math algorithms, and normally this is in exchange for, well, cryptocurrency. So the answer is and remains B. Question 35. You discover at one of your clients a very high amount of connection requests are coming from all over geographically. So if suddenly you get a high influx of requests from all over on a specific server resource, that's pretty suspicious. What type of attack is this, guys? Is it a distributed denial of service attack? We call that a DDoS attack for short. Yes, that actually is the answer here. So DDoS attack, guys, is when you go and hit a website or a server or whatever with so much traffic to the point where it cannot cope with the load or it times out. And the way we do that is to go and have many machines geographically all over the world normally hit the same website or ping the same website or query the same website at the same time. These are most often going to be part of a bot network, and the machines that's in this bot network are normally zombies. These machines are infected with a certain kind of malware, which basically allows me to go and abuse your machine as if it is my machine. Most of these users that are infected with this, they don't know their machines are infected with this. So their machine one day will just execute a request from me, and that is to maybe visit the website or send an email or do something like that, and the user will never be the wiser. So, yeah. The answer is not B. Phishing, we know what phishing is. I've explained that many times in this video. Phishing is when I send you, for example, an email, and I try and trick you or the user into giving me something sensitive, something of value, a username and a password, for example. Then we've got 0 day. 0 day is normally an exploit. We call these 0 day exploits. That's the actual terminology we use. So that is when we discovered, or someone discovered, a brand new weakness in something, like literally today sometimes. A brand new weakness in this program, a brand new weakness in an operating system, or something. It is so new that there's probably no patch, remedy, fix, or update for it yet. And a lot of people might, be keen to try and take advantage of that. So these are very dangerous threats. It's a new weakness or vulnerability in something, and if someone discovers this, the wrong person, they might either try and take advantage of this themselves or sell it possibly to the highest bidder. Either way, it's bad. Ransomware, I think we know what that is. That has been explained in this video before. That is malware that encrypts your machine or the user's machine, encrypts it, demands a ransom in exchange for your data. Failing to pay the ransom, they will normally threaten to delete your data. Right, question 56. One of your users would like to enter their username and password only once. Sounds pretty convenient, right? Which of the following best describes when a user enters a username and a password only once? So they will be prompted for this, yes, but instead of being prompted for this constantly on whatever platform this is, they only get asked for it once. And as long as they stay on this, let's call it session, it's not going to ask them again. Do we call that A, MFA, which is multi-factor authentication? No, guys. Multi-factor authentication is to prove you are who you claim to be, but in more than one category, or should I say more than one factor. Each factor / category is, this could be something like something you know, a password, a pin, or a phrase. That's something you know. A factor or a category can also be something you have or possess. This could be a bank card, smart card, thumb fob, or even your phone. It could be something that you are, which is normally biometric. Fingerprint scan, retina eye scan, voice recognition, facial recognition. These are all factors and categories. The three I've just mentioned are the three most common ones and the three most widely used ones, but they're not the only ones. Now, multi-factor is when you ask the user to go and prove their identity in more than one category, 2 or more. So they've got to give you, for example, a pin and a card. A pin would be something you know, a card would be something you have. It's got to be something in each of these factors, at least 2 different factors or more. So it's going to add on to your security. B, inheritance. It's normally something you'll experience with permissions, but it's not limited to permissions. So if I apply, as an example, a permission to a certain folder, any subfolders would normally by default inherit that permission. So that's an example of inheritance, but it's not the only example of inheritance. So it's not B. C, SSO. That is short for single sign-on, guys. And it comes down to the fact where a user will go and provide username and a password. They'll have to prove they are who they claim to be, but only once. So, yeah, that's obviously the answer here, guys. And then D. Authentication is just in general a concept of proving you are who you claim to be or what you claim to be. I am the owner to this account, or I am the owner to this device. Question 57. You have a user who is working from home who is complaining they can't view or access in-office network folders when they are at home. So this seems to be working fine when in the office, but when they're at home, not so much. Which of the following is most likely the reason why they can access stuff at the office, but not at home? Is it MDM policies? Now, MDM, guys, is short for mobile device management. You get various tools that are classified as MDM, but one of the main ones, which 99% of the public is using, is Microsoft Intune. These policies that are enforced by something like Intune, they allow us to go and block or allow certain things on a person's machine. So I can go and say, you know what, you are allowed to do this, but you're not allowed to go and do that. You can install software, or you cannot install software, or you can only install this software, or only install that software. MDM is also used to go and deploy stuff to people's machines. So I can go and use an MDM to go and deploy updates, deploy drivers, deploy patches. With MDM, I can also go and do compliancy policies, things like that. But MDM is not going to have an influence on whether you can access stuff at the office or not. Not so much. So if it was a conditional access policy, then maybe, but unlikely. So if we look at answer B, outdated antivirus. Antivirus is just to go and, scan for malware like viruses. This has got to do with accessing stuff at the office when at home. So if you had a virus on your machine, then obviously that would not work when you were at the office as well. So antivirus, very, very unrelated to this question. C, untrusted software. Nowhere here we're talking about software, guys. So by process of elimination, the only answer that's left here is D, inactive VPN. Now, from an earlier question, you should know what a VPN is. We did discuss various remote connectivities earlier. VPN, which is short for Virtual Private Network, is a way for you to go and remote connect to the office to basically teleport to the office, digitally speaking. It's as if you are in the office, even though you're physically maybe somewhere else. So remember, this person, when he or she is at the office, they are on the office network, which is why they can find resources on that network. But if they go home, they are on a different network. So if they try and access stuff on the network, like the office servers, it's not going to work because they are on a different network. But if you go and use a VPN, and you VPN to the office, it would logically or digitally be as if they are at the office. Anything they could normally access and do on the network while they were at the office, they will be able to do that now. So if your VPN has not been configured, not been set up, or if it's just been turned off, like in this case they say it's inactive, that would cause this issue. So the answer is D. Question 58. You need to upgrade a lot of machines at one of your client's companies to Windows 11. You notice you only have one disk and you decide to do it over the network. Which of the following boot methods initiates such an upgrade? Is it SSD, guys? SSD is just, well, solid state drive, and that's not going to work. I mean, you've got one disk here. How do you plan on using one solid state drive to go and install Windows 11 on many machines on a network? Not really going to work now, is it? B, optical drive. Now that is a way or a method to go and install Windows. Yes, it is. But it's only going to work on one machine at a time. And that's now, these days, that's assuming you even have an optical drive, but that's not what this question is about. I'm sure you guys would have noticed most machines these days don't even come out of optical drives anymore. But assuming you even have one, that will allow you to install Windows 11 on that machine and that machine alone. If you look at a flash drive method, that also works, but once again on that machine and that machine alone. Yes, it'll be faster than a DVD, and you can go and use that via a USB port now, but it's still kind of limited to one machine. So if it's just one machine that you want to go and install Windows on, these days the more likely scenario will probably be a flash drive, because that's what we use. Most machines don't have optical drives these days anymore. But it's still not going to work if you need to do this on many machines. So by process of elimination, as you can see, the only answer that's left here is D once again, guys. PXE. It allows us to have machines boot over the network. So you can go and basically share that disk over the network, or put it on a server of sorts, and have machines boot all of them over the network. You just boot them all over the network using that DVD from the server perhaps. So that's going to work. Question 59. A user at the company of your clients is working with highly regulated data. The user now notices that often there is a high amount of traffic in their work area, and they are now concerned about possible data exposure as people work by. So basically this person is sitting at a PC at their office, they're working with very highly regulated data, and there's a high amount of people walking behind them, in other words. This person is now concerned that basically someone's going to be able to see on their screen. They're going to see something they're not supposed to on their screen. So which of the following security measures can be used? Biometric device. No, guys. Biometric is a very good form of security, but that's to keep people out of a place or off a device. This person is concerned about people walking behind them. A biometric device is going to have no influence on that. Remember, this person is 10 to 1 logged into their machine. They're sitting in front of the machine, they've got the machine screen on, and people can actually see on their screen while they're walking by. So biometrics can have zero influence on that. If you look at a cable lock, also a very good form of physical security on the device. It prevents people from physically stealing a laptop, physically stealing a computer case, but it does not prevent them from logging in. That's not the problem here. And it definitely does not prevent them from seeing stuff on your screen they're not supposed to. So cable lock has got zero influence on this problem. It's not A, it's not B. C, a privacy screen. Yes, guys. You'll often find it in companies, they've got these little cubicles, and that'll prevent people from seeing on your screen. So if you're working with something sensitive, something of high value, something confidential, these little cubicles, those walls, I suppose you can think of those as privacy screens. You also sometimes find certain screens actually have like a certain layer on them, where if you look on a screen at a certain angle, it'll be blank or black. It's going to look like a screen is off. Meanwhile, you've got to look at the screen from a certain angle. So I've often seen these at ATMs. I think that's the most common place I've seen that. Now, in my particular area, the ATMs always used to have that, but nowadays, the ATM screens are getting bigger and bigger and fancier, but they've also removed the privacy screen, which is weird, so they're actually going backwards in terms of security. So if you stand in front of the ATM and you look straight down at the ATM screen, you'll be able to see the screen. But if anybody was standing behind you at an angle and they basically try to do what we call shoulder surfing, they try to see on your screen, they would not be able to do so because they will just see a black screen. It's not going to work. That is a privacy screen. You've got to look at it at a certain angle. And that is the answer here, by the way. If you look at answer D, a man trap. Also a good form of security, but once again, a physical form of security. Most commonly, you'll find these at banks, possibly jewelry stores, but they're also found in IT, most commonly at server rooms. So if you want to get into a bank, a jewelry store, a server room, or whatever, there's a certain room you've got to walk into first. And if you're allowed to be in that bank, that jewelry store, or whatever, or you're not deemed as a threat, the second door would open. So there's normally at least a 2-door system. So you'll have to enter a little chamber, a glass chamber possibly, that's got bulletproof glass. And if you are deemed as no threat and you're allowed to enter, you will be able to open the second door. And the same if you want to exit. So if you're assuming you have not robbed this place, you'll be able to go through the man trap again and exit. Question 40. You have removed a hard drive from a client server that contains a lot of very sensitive information, guys. You need to dispose of the hard drive and make sure nobody can recover data from it. Which of the following methods guarantees nobody can recover data from it? Choose all that apply. Now guys, this is something I have mentioned in this video before. I told you guys there is 4 ways you can go and destroy a hard drive in such a way so that nobody can recover data from it. All 4 of these methods are discussed in the A+ scores. All 4 of them are in the manual, and they will ask you about all 4 of them in the exam. Maybe you'll get them in the exam, maybe not, but all 4 of them are in the exam. You need to know what all 4 of these methods are. Now looking at the 4 answers I've given you guys below, random answers, which ones guarantee nobody can recover data? Is it answer A, shredding? Yes. It rips that hard drive to bits and pieces, almost like a paper shredder, except this is for metal. You do get them for metal as well. So A is guaranteed gonna get the job done. So A is one of the answers. If we look at answer B, formatting. First of all, it doesn't say if it's standard formatting or low-level formatting. Low-level formatting will work a lot better, but even that does not guarantee. There's always a chance that 1% or less of the data might still remain intact. So B is not going to guarantee it. It's going to be very effective if it's low-level formatting they're talking about here. But it doesn't even say if it's low-level formatting or not. I purposely left it like that. I purposely left it as vague as possible because that's what you're going to experience in the exam, guys. I'm trying to simulate what you will experience in the exam. So my answer B is a bit vague. So I'm going to leave that. If you look at answer C, incineration. Yes, that is one of the guaranteed methods. You're melting that hard drive down to molten metal, guys. C is going to guarantee get rid of the data. If you look at answer D, deguzzing. Deguzzing is one of the methods discussed in A+. It is one of the methods that they say is going to get rid of data. But does it guarantee it? No. Believe it or not, deguzzing, as effective as it might be, it corrupts all the data, yes, but it doesn't guarantee it. There's always a chance that 0.1% or less might still be accessible, might still be recoverable, and for all we know, that little bit of data might still be very sensitive. It does not guarantee it. So D, very close. D is very close to guaranteeing it, but it doesn't guarantee it. The true answers here is A and C. Question 41. The company of one of your clients does not allow USB drives to be available in workstations. An exception, however, needs to be made for one user. You change the policy for the one user, Which of the following commands should you run next? Is it A, check disk? No, guys. That is a command we run in command prompt to go and check a hard drive for damaged clusters and sectors. It's got nothing to do with policies. B, GP update. Yes. So if you did some sort of group policy change, it will not always take effect immediately. The machines that it affects, they will often have to be restarted first. So this will often take like a whole day before it takes effect, because often people will leave their machine on the whole day, and only after they leave work will they go and turn the machine off, which means this change will more than likely only take effect the next morning when they start the machine back up. But if you need it to take effect immediately, GP update, well, more specifically GP update /force, is a command you can go run to force this update to take effect immediately. So B is the answer. C, disk part. That is a command we go and run to, well, go and check what hard drives we've got, to go and partition them and things like that. D, ipconfig is a command we use to go and show us the basic network configuration on this specific machine, to show you the IP address, subnet marks, default gateway, that kinds of stuff. Question 42. One of your clients has a computer that is used for point of sale transactions. This computer of theirs is used to process credit cards. Which of the following types of encryption should you use to protect the data on the computer in case of theft? Alright guys, so if we look at answer A, USB drive encryption. Although that is a good kind of encryption, it's specifically for USB drives. So one of the things you can go and use there is BitLocker. But BitLocker, you need to go and specify, are we encrypting a hard drive or are we encrypting a flash drive? Normally with BitLocker, if you're going to go and encrypt something that's removable, like an external drive or a USB drive, that will be BitLocker to go. And if you're going to go and encrypt something inside of the computer, like an internal hard drive, that would just be normal BitLocker. Anyway, so A specifically says USB drive encryption, and we need to encrypt the computer itself in case someone steals the whole freaking computer. A is not going to work with that. Answer B, data in transit encryption. No, we are concerned about the computer, not the communication between the computer and wherever it needs to go. So it's not B. C, file encryption. That, guys, is only going to encrypt the files on the machine. Certain files, some of them might not be encrypted, some of them will be encrypted. There's still a possibility that these thieves might potentially get their hands on something they're not supposed to. So C is not going to quite cut it. It is so far the best answer if we have to go and look at A, B, and C. A and B is completely unrelated. C, yeah, some of the stuff will be encrypted, but not all of it. It's not the best. Answer D, on the other hand, that is the answer. Disk encryption. It's full disk encryption. It's going to encrypt the whole freaking hard drive on that computer. So yes, they can still steal the machine. It's not going to prevent them from stealing it. But the data on the hard drive, they won't be able to get their hands on that at least. So we can at least sleep at night knowing they won't be able to get their hands on the data. Question 43. You need to recommend a backup solution to one of your clients to mitigate ransomware attacks. In other words, a solution to a problem. Which of the following would be best for the client? A full backup. Now, a full backup is a good thing to do, guys. We should all have at least one full backup. You definitely need to do a full backup. Your very first backup will probably be a full backup. The problem of these backups, guys, is they're still plugged in somewhere often. So if you are going to go and do a full backup, make sure it is off-site. I'm probably giving you guys the answer here. The answer is off-site. It doesn't help you've got amazing backups, but these backups are still plugged in. Because when you get ransomware, these ransomwares will most often encrypt all the backups as well that were connected. So you can have a full backup, you can have daily backups, weekly backups, monthly backups, but in most cases, most of these companies have these backups plugged in. And the problem with that is ransomware, they know that you are doing backups. So they're going to stay dormant on your system for about a month or so, and then one day, boom, it's going to encrypt everything, including any and all backups that were connected. So unless you've got off-site backups that were not physically connected, yeah, it's not going to work. So a full backup is good to do. And in case this was some sort of digital disaster, which is not ransomware, that'll probably be coming in quite handy. But ransomware, no, it's not going to work with that. A differential backup, if we look at answer B and answer D, differentials and incremental backups, these two for the most part are going to go and check what has changed since your last full backup or since your last differential incremental backup. It's only going to go and back up what has changed. So you can go look at those two. They're very much the same, those two. So for the most part, they will go and check what has changed since the last backup and only back up the changes. So if there's new files, it'll back them up. If you deleted files, it's going to go and delete those files in your backup. If you changed files, it's going to back up the changes in your backup. But these backups are still probably plugged in. Offsite backup is the only backup that's going to help you against a ransomware attack because it's not plugged in. Question 44. One of your clients just installed a new backup system. Oh boy, here we go with the backups again. Which of the following types of backups should the client do first? Alright, so now you guys have got a fairly good idea between backups since we just discussed that. What backup do we do first? If it's a brand new client or you're doing your very first backup, what backup do you do, guys? Is it incremental or differential? No. Those are the kinds of backups you do once you have backups in place already. Incremental and differential, it's going to go and check what has changed since your last full backup. So the first backup you do is always going to be a full backup because you've got nothing backed up yet at that point in time. Now, if you guys are curious what the exact difference between incremental and differential are, since those two are very much the same, the key difference here, guys, is an incremental backup. It saves the changes since the last backup, full or incremental. So it doesn't matter if it's a full backup or an incremental backup, it saves the changes since the last backup, which could be either full or incremental. Now, if you look at differential, it backs up changes since the last full backup. So incremental will check since the last full or incremental, where differential is just going to go and check the changes since the last full backup. So I suppose you could say incremental is actually better. It's going to be more up to date, more accurate, if you will. Anyway, guys, we know the answer here is C. If we look at answer D, offsite backup, that is generally used for in case of a physical disaster, So if the branch burns down, if the building catches fire, or there's a landslide, or a tornado, or a riot, or theft, anything physical happens to your backups on site, then you've got another backup physically in a different site, off-site. And, you or your technicians, whoever, can just go and retrieve that backup off-site, bring it back, and you can go and restore from that. Off-site backups are obviously also pretty good for ransomware attacks, so in case there's a ransomware attack, then you might actually have to resort to off-site backups as well, because the ransomware is going to encrypt all your backups that were plugged in. Your full backups, incremental backups, differential backups, daily, weekly, monthly, anything that was plugged in, it's gone. Off-site backups are pretty much one of the only backups you can go and use with a ransomware attack. Question 45. One of your clients called the help desk to report that a machine that recently updated is no longer working. So safe to assume the updates caused something. You check the latest logs to see what updates were deployed, but nothing was deployed in more than 3 weeks. Which of the following should you do to best resolve the issue? Alright, so now it looks like it might not have been updates, since the last updates have not taken place since 3 weeks ago. And this is now a new issue, so it's probably not an update. Which of the following should you do to best resolve the issue? Advise that the help desk will investigate and follow up at a later stage. Yeah, that doesn't sound very professional. If you said advise the help desk will investigate, maybe just on its own, that might not have been too bad of an answer. But the fact that it says and follow up at a later stage, yeah, that sounds like you don't really care about the client's problem. So A doesn't sound like a good answer, does it? B, offer to wipe and reset the device for the computer. That's pretty drastic, guys. That's normally if all else fails. That's the last thing you want to go and do for the client. The clients don't want to hear that you're going to go and wipe their machine, because there's a very good chance they might not even have their data afterwards. So B doesn't sound very good, does it? C, put the client on hold and escalate the call to a manager. Now, that's not the worst answer so far. If we go look at A, B, and C, C is so far the best answer, but it still does kind of give the impression you don't know what you're doing. But out of A, B, and C, that is the best answer. If we look at D, use open-ended questions to further diagnose the issue. Yes. So C would be the second best answer. D is the best answer here. So we now know that it's not the updates. It looks like it might be an update, but we've established that it's not the updates because this machine has not updated for the last 3 weeks. So it cannot be that. It is something else that has changed on this machine recently. So to help us kind of try and figure out what that might be, besides using Event Viewer and other kinds of logs, is to ask questions. Specifically, open-ended questions, where we force the user to give us more than a one-word answer. A closed-ended question is where they just say yes or no, for example. That's a one-word answer. Open-ended questions is where you force them to give you an explanation more than just a one-word answer. So you're going to go and ask them various open-ended questions to try and figure out what this is. So when did the problem start? When last did the machine work? Is there anything you recently installed, uninstalled, hardware-wise, software-wise? Any settings you changed recently? Those kinds of questions. Question 46. Which of the following would prevent unauthorized access to a mobile device if it was left unattended? So if I left my phone, for example, on a desk somewhere and somebody happens to get their hands on it, what would help prevent unauthorized access on that device of mine? Would it be a BYOD policy? That is bring your own device policy. No, guys. That's a policy we enforce in companies that basically specifies what users can use their own device for and what not. It will, for example, say you cannot use your own device for the purpose of work, or you can, but you can only use it in these scenarios, or only at the office, or. So it dictates what you can do and cannot do in terms of your own device, in terms of work. This has got nothing to do with leaving your device unattended. Is it answer B? A PIN code. So far, yes, guys, that is the answer. A PIN code is one method, not the only method, that helps protect your device if you leave it unattended. Now, obviously, it's not 100% effective, but it's better than having no security at all. So if you leave your phone on a desk somewhere, and someone happens to get a hold of it, they can't just go and willy-nilly open it. They need a PIN code. So there is at least some sort of security that keeps unauthorized people off it. It might not be the best, but it is security, and it will achieve our goal here. So that is the answer, in case you guys don't know. C, antivirus software. Although not bad to have on a phone, that is used for malware on a phone to detect viruses and spyware and things like that. It does not prevent unauthorized access on a device. Operating system updates, also good to have on a phone. That obviously takes care of vulnerabilities and zero-day exploits and things like that. It takes care of stability concerns. If there was some sort of stability issue in your operating system, it'll take care of that too. But it does not prevent, once again, unauthorized access. The only option out of these four that even remotely prevents unauthorized access is a PIN code. Question 47. An application user in your company received an email indicating the version of the application currently in use will no longer be sold. Oh dear. Users of this version of the application will no longer receive patches or updates either. Now that is a problem in most companies, guys. If your operating system that you're using or the application you're using in your company is no longer going to be supported and definitely no longer going to be receiving patches and updates, that's bad. It's bad for many reasons. It's bad for stability concerns, security concerns, auditor concerns. Companies need to use operating systems and applications that are currently still supported by the manufacturers and that currently still receive patches and updates. So if they're not going to receive that anymore, what do we call that? Which of the following indicates a vendor no longer supports a product? Is it answer A, AUP? No. That stands for Acceptable Usage Policy. It's basically a policy a company will go and specify that says what you're allowed to use their assets for or the resource for and what not. A place you might possibly encounter this is on the splash screen when you just start Windows up. So where you would go and type in the Windows password, there will sometimes, on some companies' PCs, be a little message that says you're only allowed to use this machine for the following and not allowed to use it for the following. It'll basically specify what this machine can be used for and what not. It'll say you cannot use it, for example, for Facebook. You cannot use it for YouTube. You can only use it for the purpose of work. You might possibly see this agreement if you're about to go and use the company internet. It might say you can only use the internet for the purpose of work and not for, well, personal things. So that's an example of an AUP, Acceptable Usage Policy. Specifies what you can use company resources for and what not. Answer B, End User License Agreement is what that one stands for. So that's normally something you'll find if you buy a product, hardware or software. In most cases, you'll probably see this of software. So if you're about to install an operating system or some sort of software or a game you just bought, there's normally an EULA that you've got to agree to before you can use this operating system, this game, or the software. It basically goes and specifies that you're not allowed to go and pirate this software or this game or whatever it might be, not allowed to go and give it away for free, not allowed to go and resell your license. It specifies what you're allowed to do with this product and what not. But it's got nothing to do with things that's basically reaching their end of life. If you look at answer C, yes, EOL stands for end of life. So when an operating system or a program, application, or game is no longer supported by, well, the creators of this product, the vendor of the product, we call that end of life. As an example, Windows 10 will probably reach its end of life in October 2025. That's what Microsoft has stated. Now, at the moment when I'm making this video, it's currently in September 2025. Microsoft said that their Windows 10 will come to its end of life in October 2025. But, Microsoft doesn't always stick to the deadline. So we'll see if that actually happens or not, after October. So if you guys are watching this after October, you'll probably know whether Windows 10 has reached its end of life or not. It doesn't mean it won't work anymore. It simply means they won't support anymore. There's not going to be any updates. There's not going to be any patches. So there's a new bug or a glitch or a new security vulnerability. Tough bananas. You're not going to get any updates for it anymore. They will only support Windows 11 and whatever comes afterwards. So that happens to all operating systems at some point in time. And it happens with all applications at some point in time. There's going to be a point in time where you will no longer receive any updates, security patches, things like that. And for Windows 10, that's going to be October 2025, unless they decide to change their minds. So the answer is C. If we look at D, obviously that's not the answer. UAC, User Account Control, a function or feature that came out on Windows Vista in 2007. Something I did mention earlier in this video. So it's a security function. It's got nothing to do with, well, this question. If we look at question 48 here, folks, which of the following can be used to extend the life of a device? Is it A, battery backup? Now, a battery backup will allow this device to work for longer periods of time in case of a power failure, or in case if you do have a battery and the battery is about to run, well, flat. So if you've got a backup battery, it can keep a desktop PC up and running in case there's a blackout. And if you've got a battery backup, it can keep something like a laptop running for longer in case your laptop's battery is about to run flat. So, but it's not going to extend the life of a device. It's going to keep it on for longer in case of a power failure, yes, but it does not extend the life of a device. B, green disposal. Nope. That's after the device is no longer going to be used and you're about to dispose of it. Green disposal is just to make sure it gets, well, recycled, reused in a proper manner. Gets disposed of in a proper manner instead of just being thrown on a trash heap. Answer C, proper ventilation. Yes, that could possibly extend the life of a device. So if you look at something like a laptop especially, desktop PCs as well, but laptops especially, they've got very small vents, guys. I'm not sure if you guys have seen. The vents in a laptop is very small. They've got very small fine mesh in front of the vents, and often these will get clogged by dust a lot quicker, a lot easier than a desktop PC. And if you don't clear it up, the PC is going to overheat. And the longer it overheats, well, the shorter its life is going to be. So at the end of the day, if you clear these vents up, which most of you guys probably don't do, that's going to actually extend the life of your PC, especially with laptops. So that is the answer, by the way. If you look at answer D, electrostatic discharge mat. That doesn't exist. That is something I actually sucked out of my thumb, guys. I suppose we could say rubber mat. I suppose that could technically classify as electrostatic discharge mat. But I literally went and made that name up. It doesn't even exist. So rubber mats, yes, we use that to prevent electrostatic discharge. It's something you'll put underneath yourself and underneath the components that you're working on. But an electrostatic discharge mat is not something we actually find. It's not the actual name for it. I actually made that up. Alright folks, before we proceed, in case you don't know, if you want more practical based questions, these ones that I've got on this video are theory based, but if you want more practical based questions, you can find that on my Patreon. Link is in the video description down below. There you'll also find a link to my Discord server if you'd like to go and check that out. Right, let's move on to question 49. One of your clients has just installed a new computer game on their gaming rig. They notice that they have low frame rates. Which of the following can you upgrade on the client's computer to improve this? So in other words, improve their frame rates. Is it the hard drive? Should you go and upgrade the hard drive? No, guys. The hard drive is going to give you more storage, but it won't really give you more of a performance increase in terms of gaming. Generally of gaming, you want to ideally have a solid state drive or a .m2 drive, if you know what that is. So that is to feed the information quicker to the RAM and to the CPU. It will make a bit of a difference, but not that much in terms of frame rates. So no, it's not the hard drive. Is it B, the graphics card, or as some folks know it, the GPU? Yes, the graphics card is probably the biggest influence you're going to have on your frame rates. So a good graphics card will probably have the biggest influence. The graphics card is probably going to be the component that will have the biggest influence on your frame rates. After the graphics card, that'll probably be your CPU. So at the end of the day, if you don't have a good CPU, then your graphics card is just going to bottleneck. Graphics card first, followed by a good CPU, and then, you can go and look at things like your RAM as well. So the graphics card, yes, that will improve the frame rate. It's not the RAM. After the graphics card, you would look at things like your CPU to make sure your graphics card's not bottlenecked. And then you'll go and look at things like your RAM. D, no, not going to be that big of a big influence on your frame rates. So yes, you ideally want to get yourself a gaming monitor because their refresh rate's a lot higher. So that'll have a little bit of an influence on how laggy it looks on the screen, but not as much as the graphics card and all the other components. Question 50. Woof, we finally reached question 50. Can you believe it? You receive a report from a client that one of your remote users is having issues connecting to their Wi-Fi. The client's user states the Wi-Fi name does not look familiar. Uh-oh. You suspect the user might be connecting to an evil twin. Even more, uh-oh. Which of the following is the first action you should take as the technician? Is it A, instruct them to run an antivirus software on the user's machine? No, guys. Remember, an evil twin is when somebody, some sort of threat actor, goes and takes a router or an access point and they go and broadcast an SSID, which usually has the same name as your Wi-Fi, or they just go and broadcast some sort of SSID in the hopes of tricking people to go and connect to that. And then when people go and connect to that wrong Wi-Fi, they will go and hack these people and get all kinds of cookies and stuff from them, which is bad. Now, running an antivirus scan is not going to make any difference there. Antivirus is going to go and check for malware on the machine. We do not have malware. We've got somebody that's intercepting that machine of theirs. So antivirus, no, it's not going to help with that. B, instruct them to disconnect from this unfamiliar Wi-Fi connection. Yes. So as soon as they realize they're on the wrong Wi-Fi, they need to disconnect before this person goes and does something. Hopefully, they have not hacked this person's machine yet and gotten anything important from them. But as soon as they go and connect to a Wi-Fi and then they notice, oh, oops, wrong one, please disconnect as quickly as possible is what you should go and tell this user. So that is the answer. If you look at C, instruct them to open a web browser and see if it redirects to a website. No, why would you want to do that? You're basically telling them to go and check if this thing directs them to a phishing website or something. Why? Why would you want to go and test that? D, instruct them to restart the remote user's router. Restarting is not going to change the SSID, guys. If it's the wrong SSID, it's the wrong SSID. If they said they did not have internet access or something along those lines, then you could maybe say go and try and restart the router. But if it's the wrong SSID, restarting the router is not going to make any difference to that. The answer remains B. Question 51. You need to implement the most secure wireless network encryption on a client's router. Which of the following should you implement? Alright guys, so all of the answers I'm giving you guys down below, they are encryption, don't get me wrong. But are they all wireless encryption? That is the question. No, they're not. I purposely put a couple of random encryptions in there just to mess with you guys to see if you understand what wireless encryption is or which ones are wireless encryption. Now in terms of wireless encryption guys, the first one you get, the oldest one, which is the least secure, is WEP. So A, answer A there, is indeed wireless encryption. But is it the most secure one on that list? So WEP It's one of the oldest ones and the least secure ones. After that, they released WPA because WEP was too unsecure. People started hacking it and stuff, so they decided, you know what? Let's release something newer, something more secure. And that's when WPA was born. It's not on this list though. So WPA is newer and more secure, but it's not on this list. Then it didn't take them very long to go and start hacking that as well, so they decided, you know what? Let's release another one. Even newer, even better, and more secure. And that was the birth of WPA2. It's even newer than WPA and even more secure. Is that on the list? Yes. So far, both answer A and C are plausible, and C we now know is the newer one out of the two and the more secure one. And then more recently they actually started releasing WPA3, which is even better and more secure, but we don't have that one on this list. Now you'll find that most routers and access points and stuff, they only go up to WPA2, so only the latest of the latest will probably have WPA3, but a lot of routers and access points and stuff these days can still only go up to WPA2. So if you were to go and choose, you would see WEP, WPA, WPA2, and maybe if you're lucky, WPA3. So the most secure, WPA3. The least secure, WEP. Now in the exam, it's very unlikely it'll give you all four to go and choose from, so instead they'll do something like what I'm doing with you guys here. They will randomly take one or two of them, and they'll ask you, out of the four possible answers in the exam, which is the most secure or which is the least secure. Now in reality, WPA3 is the most secure, but it's not available as an answer. I did it on purpose. So obviously, you're just going to go and look at the next one down the list, and then the next one down the list. The same happens if they ask you which is the least secure. The least secure is WEP. But if it's not an answer, you just go check what other one on the list is there. So if WPA was there, that would have been your answer if they asked which one is the least secure. So A and C here, guys, are both wireless encryptions, and C is the more secure one, the most secure one you can go and choose. Answer B, BitLocker, is encryption, but that's something we go and use to go and do full disk encryption. And EFS is also encryption, but that is a benefit of the NTFS file system, and that is something we use to go and encrypt single files and folders on the operating system. So the answer is and remains C, folks. Question 52. You need to configure a specific application to launch at a certain time on a client's computer. Ooh. Which of the following would allow you to achieve this? Is it answer A? Now, I purposely wrote these things weird because that is something they will do in the exam. Instead of giving you the various tools as proper names, they will give you, well, I can say the codes that you would have to go and type to go and open them up. So this is normally what you'll go and type into run or whatever to get these things to open up. So answer A would open Event Viewer. You can go and test that out. It's going to open Event Viewer. It basically shows you logs of everything that happens on this machine. That's all it does. It just shows you logs of what has happened. It doesn't allow you to schedule things though, so it's not A. Answer B, if you go and try that, is going to open something called Task Scheduler. And that is used to schedule various tasks. You can display messages, open applications, run scripts, and that is indeed the answer here, guys. Answer C is going to open Resource Monitor. It doesn't actually do anything, once again, like Event Viewer. It just shows you what's happening on the machine. So you can see the four main counters in great detail. If you look at answer D, also doesn't actually do anything. It just monitors stuff. So that's Performance Monitor. It's going to open Performance Monitor. It allows you or the technician to go and add what we call counters. And you can go and monitor pretty much anything on this machine. So the answer is B. Question 53. One of your clients wants to improve security and prevent cars from physically driving into the building. Yep. Which of the following would allow your customer to achieve this? Is it A, bollards? Yes, guys. That is the things we would normally go and put in front of entrances some places, or next to generators, or any place really where you don't want cars to go and drive. We normally concrete those into the floor, and then vehicles can go and drive over that particular area. So bollards are specifically used for vehicles in most cases. B, cameras is not going to physically prevent cars from driving into a building. I will be able to see who drove into the building, yes, so from a security perspective, I can see who are guilty, but it's not going to prevent them from physically driving in. A security guard could, well, technically, I suppose, prevent them, but it's not going to be as effective as bollards. Motion sensors, pretty much the same as cameras. Motion sensors might trigger some sort of alarm, and you'll know somebody's driving in somewhere where they're not supposed to, but it's not going to physically prevent them. It might discourage them, like the cameras. Cameras can discourage people from doing stuff they're not supposed to. Same with motion sensors, but it doesn't stop them. So A and C can physically stop them, A being the better one out of the two. Question 54. An incident is normally when something bad happens. An incident has taken place at one of your clients, and you need to document who had possession of evidence at every step of the process. Which of the following describes what you are doing? Now, an incident in IT could be anything, guys, but it's normally something bad that happens. This could be a fire that broke out in the server room. It could be a medical incident. Maybe someone choked on a cookie in the server room. But in IT, it's more than likely going to be something that crashed, something that failed, something that broke. Maybe even something that got stolen. Now, if this is an incident of, let's say, somebody stole something and you're gathering evidence, that evidence has to be gathered by a specific person. It has to be bagged and tagged by a specific person if this is not physical evidence. It's got to be transported by a specific person. It's got to be investigated by a certain person, and. Otherwise, it cannot be used in a court of law. What do we call that? Is it rights management? No, guys. Rights management is a way or a means for us to control the actions of users. Very much the same as NTFS permissions. But it's not the process of what we're seeing here. B, chain of custody. Yes, guys, if you guys have ever watched a crime episode or a movie where they gather evidence, if you go look at the Popo gathering evidence, certain people's got to gather the evidence, certain people's got to transport it, and. That's called your chain of custody. If the wrong people gather the evidence, or the wrong people touch the evidence or transport it, the chain of custody is broken. That means the evidence cannot be used in a court of law. It's inadmissible in a court of law. So the answer is B. C, an audit trail. This is something we use to see, okay, who has done what. So, during audits we can see who's guilty if something bad happens. But, yeah, it doesn't really describe this exact process we see here. Data integrity is to prevent data from getting compromised. To make sure it's original, authentic. Nobody has tampered that. One thing we can go and use to ensure integrity is various kinds of encryption. This could be BitLocker encryption. This could be hashing. You get many kinds of encryption. This could be digital signatures. It's to make sure something is authentic and original. It is from who it claims to be, and it is what it claims to be. It has not been altered in any way, and it is not coming from the wrong person. Question 55. Almost done, guys. Hang in there. One of your clients report they have an issue with their PC. The report the PC is a lot slower than usual. Oh, goodness. Which of the following would help you identify what the issue could possibly be? Is it A, group policy editor? No, guys. That is something that can be used both on the client side as well as the server side, but we normally use this on the server side to go and create and configure group policies which apply to users. It basically specifies what people can do and cannot do, and we can do various tweaking on people's machines, but it normally does not make their PC slower or faster. So, no. Answer B, disk management, something we have discussed before in this course, as well as answer C. Disk management is used to manage your hard drives for the most part. Not just your hard drives, but generally your storage. So I can go and format hard drives, I can go and delete partitions, create partitions and things like that, but it's not going to make a machine faster or slower. Disk cleanup, that's going to create more free space on a hard drive, but it's not going to make it faster. So obviously, because of process of elimination, we already know the answer here is D. Resource monitor, guys, will allow you to see why the PC might be slower, which is what we want to see here. It shows you the four main counters: CPU, memory, hard drive, and network respectively. You can see in great detail what's going on each of these four counters. So if something is perhaps using a lot of RAM as an example, you will be able to see exactly what's using so much RAM, which is exactly what we want. Question 56. One of your clients reports the data usage on their smartphone is way above the usual amount they would normally go and use. You suspect they might have an installed application that is transmitting data in the background. You would like for the user to be alerted when an application attempts to communicate with the internet. Which of the following would allow you to achieve this on their device? Is it remote wipe? No, guys, that's very drastic. That's going to go and wipe the person's device, assuming it's turned on and connected to some sort of network. That's not going to allow them to see when an application is trying to connect to the internet. No, that's just going to wipe the device blank. Is it B, antivirus? No, antivirus is to prevent malware or to get rid of malware, but it's not going to allow the user to know when an application is trying to connect to the internet. Services? No, that's just going to show you what's running on the device. So like usual, because of process of elimination, we know the answer is D, firewall. Now a lot of phones, guys, do not come out of firewall. Some of them do, some of them don't, but most of them don't. Now in the firewall of the device, you can go and configure it so that every time an application wants to connect to the internet, it needs to ask the user first or alert the user. It's going to say, this application wants to access the internet. Do you want to allow this? And the user is going to have to say something along the lines of, yes, this time only, or only when the application is in use, or always. You know, at least the user will know about it. And if an application tries to connect to the internet, and it's of course something the user does not know about, they can say, whoa, hey, hang on, I'm going to block this. And then hopefully that will go and reduce their data usage. Question 57. Which of the following types of malware will cause a user's machine to run slower than usual and cause extremely high GPU usage? Not CPU, GPU, graphics processing unit. Is it a Trojan horse? No, a Trojan horse, remember, is something pretending to be one thing when in reality it's doing something else. In reality it's maybe stealing information while it's pretending to be a game or some sort of useful program. Nowhere here do we mention a program that's pretending to be one thing while it's doing something else. No, not a Trojan horse. Spyware is used to, well, spy on the user and get sensitive information. A keylogger would be such an example. Nope, does not match the description we see above. Crypto miner. Yes. Crypto miners, guys, use CPUs and GPUs, especially GPUs, to solve complex math algorithms in exchange for cryptocurrency. Now you can go and optimize your own machine, your own graphics card and CPU to go and do this, but it's not really going to be worth it on just your one machine. Or you get malware out there. It'll basically go and turn your machine into a crypto miner. Many people's machines into a crypto miner. All of these machines with their graphics cards are working together to solve these complex algorithms in exchange for cryptocurrency, and then you get that. Now the graphics card processing unit, guys, is normally a lot more powerful than the CPU. They're a lot better at solving those algorithms, which is why we normally go and use the GPUs instead of the CPUs. You can go and use a CPU, but this is normally something you'll find happening on a GPU. So we know the answer is C. Answer D, ransomware. We know what that is. That's to go and encrypt the user's data. It's normally going to demand a ransom in exchange for the data back, and if you don't pay for that, then, well, they threaten to delete your data. Question 58. One of your clients still runs on Windows 32-bit operating systems. They plan on upgrading to Windows 64-bit operating systems. Wow, finally. Which of the following would they be able to take fully advantage of after the upgrade? Is it the CPU, the RAM, the hard drive, or the SSD? Now guys, the answer here is the RAM. A 32-bit operating system, for those of you who don't know, limits you to about 3 gigs of RAM. It's actually 3.3 gigs. Some manuals will tell you it's 3 gigs, some will tell you it's 4 gigs. I think the A+ course says it's 4 gigs, but if you go check, it's actually 3.3 gigs. So the answer in the exam will be 4 gigs. If they ask you, how much RAM does a 32-bit operating system limit you to? The answer in the exam is normally around 4 gigs. But in reality, it's actually not 4 gigs exactly, it's about 3.3 gigs. So if you've got 8 gigs of RAM installed as an example, you would only be able to use about 3 to 4 gigs of the 8 gig. The rest of it as well, it's just going to be there, it's going to be wasted. But if you've got a 64-bit operating system, you can use all the RAM you've got. So that's what this question is all about. The answer is RAM, guys. Question 59, the second last one, almost there. One of the junior technicians is about to change the CPU on a client's computer's motherboard. You remind them that they need to remember to take proper precaution when changing the CPU. Now, what precaution could we be talking about here, guys? Which of the following should you remind them to do? I want you guys to give me 2 answers here. Is it A, making use of an ESD strap? Yes, electrostatic discharge strap. You can go put this around your wrist or your ankle, it really doesn't matter. And the other end of the strap, you're going to go and clip that onto something that's grounded, like a metal table
or whatever that's grounded. Why? Because the human body, guys, remember, has enough static electricity in it to blow circuit boards like the motherboard, RAM, chip, CPUs, and things like that. So to prevent that from happening, we ground ourselves using an ESD strap. So that's definitely something important to go and do before changing a CPU. B, making sure the vents are unobstructed. Now that is something important to do in a computer, but it's got nothing to do with changing a CPU. That is something you can go and do as an extra while you are changing the CPU, sure. So if you've got time, to go and do that, sure, go and do that. But it's not something we normally go and look at when changing a CPU. Not that big of a concern while changing a CPU. Answer C, making use of rubber mats. Yes, guys, the same as the ESD strap. Rubber mats is something we put underneath our feet as well as underneath the machine that we are changing the CPU on. This is a way or a means for us to prevent ESD from taking place. So the answers here is A and C. Answer D, placing the PSU in an anti-static bag. PSU is short for power supply unit. Those power supply units, guys, we don't put them in anti-static bags. Even if you buy a new one, they do not come in an anti-static bag. You should go and unplug it. So if D said unplug the PSU from the wall socket, yes, that would have been an answer. But it says put it in an anti-static bag, which has got nothing to do with this question. Putting the power supply in an anti-static bag is not going to have any influence on the outcome here whatsoever. Alright folks, finally the last question of this video, and there will be more videos coming out, more for Core 1 and more for Core 2. If you'd like to know when they come out, remember to subscribe, otherwise you might miss those. If you want more practical based questions, guys, remember you can find that on my Patreon, so go check that out. The link is in the video description down below. Alright, question number 60. One of your clients has a Mac PC that is giving issues. After troubleshooting, you decide that using recovery software would be the best course of action. Which of the following should you use? Is it A, System Restore? Now guys, System Restore is a recovery software, and usually that would have actually solved this problem, but the question states it's a Mac PC. System Restore is something you find on Windows, specifically on client operating systems on Windows. It's not available on server operating systems, only on client Windows operating systems. So if this was a Windows operating system, specifically a client operating system, yes, it would have worked. But it's a Mac PC, so A is out. It's not an answer. Is it answer B, Time Machine? Yes, guys, Time Machine is basically the equivalent of System Restore. It is something you find on Mac. It's pretty much the exact same thing as System Restore. It's just on the Mac side of the coin. So yes, that is indeed the answer. If you look at File Vault, guys, File Vault, which is obviously not the answer here, is encryption. But that's specifically for Mac. So yes, it is a Mac functional feature, but it's encryption. It's got nothing to do with restoring the machine. If you look at answer D, also encryption, and that's for Windows. That's very wrong. So the one here, D, is probably the least correct answer. D is for Windows, it's not for Mac, and it's for encryption, not for restoring. C is at least for Mac, but that's encryption is the wrong thing. If you look at A, that is restoring, that is recovery, but it is for Windows. So B is the only answer here, guys. It's for Mac and it is for recovery. Alright folks, finally you've made it to the end of this specific video. If you have enjoyed this, if you've learned something, please do me a favor, give this video a like. I put a tremendous amount of effort into creating this video for you guys for free. If you'd like to know when more of my content comes out, maybe go and subscribe. I do have the full A+ 1200 series course available for free on my channel, guys. If you want to go and watch the full course, go check that out as well. And before we conclude today's video, guys, a quick shout out and thank you to all the supporters and sponsors of this video. There is the PayPal donors. So if you guys would like to make a PayPal donation yourself, you can find that in the video description down below. Alternatively, you can buy me a coffee or a milkshake. You'll find that also in the video description down below. Or you can just click on the thanks button below the video if it's available in your country. That's assuming if you want to, make a donation or sponsor the channel. And then the Patreons, the big ones. Guys, if you become a Patreon, a paid one, you can have your name displayed here. It is totally optional. So just because you become a Patreon does not mean your name will be here. So a free Patreon's name will not be displayed here. You can become a free Patreon. If you decide to take one of my paid tiers, then your name could be displayed here, but I'll normally ask you first. So if you'd like to have your name displayed here, please let me know on Patreon in a DM, and then we can add your name here and you can choose what name gets displayed. Alternatively, you can stay anonymous, which is what most people normally choose. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for supporting the channel and the content I create. Lastly, folks, in case you've forgotten, the channel does have a Discord server, an IT community of like-minded people. I'm in there, other IT trainers are in there, lots of people studying for the A+ course as well as other courses are in there. So people that are still studying, some people that are finished the A+ course. So if you've got a question or if you want to be in a study group, that's the place to be. Alright folks, I will see you on the next video.